Hey people, Pat here. Welcome to Box Office Addict, my weekly live stream podcast show, whatever the hell it is, where I look at the weekend box office and give my opinion on them, based off the expectations from the studio and the box office analysts out there, all the experts, whoever the hell those people are. And I picture them like the mafia guys in Casino that like have the place behind that deli, like the little deli place while everything's going on in Vegas, and they just have that one light over them. They're just crunching numbers like, okay, what's the opening weekend gonna be, guys? That's how I picture the analyst. But on the show, we look at the chat and we answer some questions. We talk about the movies that are getting released and look at the budget, the marketing, all that stuff, because it costs a lot of money to make a movie. Who knew? You know? I thought you could just get a home video camera and go out and shoot some stuff, but apparently that doesn't work. Also, people get really mad when you do that and you just show up in their yard with a camera. I know from experience. Hey, people. Hello, Bathory. Hello, Harbinger. Hello, Bridge. You know, Bridge, they have pretty clever, cool names, and then you're just like, one Bridge, one. I mean, cool. You sound like you're a cyborg from really lazy anime, like, Bridge 1-1. And then there's Bridge 1-2, obviously, and then Bridge 1-3. Well, it'd be Bridge 13, but I'm going to say Bridge 1-3. Remember that show Cyborg 009? Yeah, nobody does. Anyway, let's get into the box office. This is the pre-Christmas time holiday weekend area. This is before the big releases come out. There is a certain movie looming in the distance that is coming, like a ship. You know, on Independence Day when the ship is like the shadows over everything? Just picture that as a giant poster of The Last Jedi, and it's over everyone, and they're just getting covered right. And I'm like, ah, what is that? And we need Will Smith and Harry Connick Jr. out there killing the aliens, just like in that movie. Here's how this is. Okay, so when Coco dominated the last few weekends, the reason I didn't call this episode Coco something is because I'm sick of talking about Coco, and for some reason the box office addicts, when I put Coco in the title, don't seem to get as many hits as normal. So I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to talk about the Disaster Artist as the focus of the week. I'm going to say that every week one movie is it's like the focused one. It's going to be the one that gets a little bit more time to special, the one I want to talk about. And I've talked about Coco for 2 weeks, so I really don't have much left to say about that movie. Its performance in that, and it's one of those movies that's going to have to rely on word of mouth and legs to really do something domestically. So I just don't have much to say about it, and it's just been slower weekends with the newer releases. A lot of films in specialty box office have been holding really well. A lot of movies that like Lady Bird and the Three Billboards movie, and because I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Shape of Water went wide this week. And the Disaster Artist, though, Call Me By Your Name. I'm going to talk about the Disaster Artist this weekend because it opened in less than 1,000 theaters and had a pretty good opening weekend. And I'm getting the signs here for myself that I think this movie's actually going to do really well. And is something to look at and talk about. So it's going to be the film of the week for me. But Coco is cursed. Yeah, I don't know what is with Coco. Like, Box Office Addict was getting a lot of good hits, and then Coco just kind of stopped a little bit. So I'm just going to take the focus off Coco a little bit. And we'll talk about some of the other movies. Because, like I said, Coco's an animated film. It's performing on, pretty much what a lot of the expectations were. It looks like it's going to go past 200 million domestic. It's really going to have to rely on the international box office. And we're still we're not done with that yet. So, hey, Sean. Okay, so let's jump right in. All right, everyone's here now. Now let's go down here a bit, and let's talk about I, Tonya first, which is from the director of Lars and the Real Girl. If you remember that Ryan Gosling movie from a few years ago, where he was in love with the real doll. Now, this went 4 theaters, and is 245,000. That's pretty good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not amazing. There's been better openings than limited releases here, but that's still a 61,000 average per theater. Now, this stars Margot Robbie as Tonya Harding, and it's kind of done in the vein of Goodfellas by Martin Scorsese. It's very influenced by that. It's narration. I think it even has more than one narrator. It's getting great reviews. It has I think it has 90% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 8 out of 10, and like 86% with Top Critics. So it's apparently a very dark comedy, very humorous, and Margot Robbie's getting a lot of acclaim for her performance. I don't think she's going to win the Oscar, but she's probably going to get a nomination. And I'm very excited to see this movie. I'm not going to get a chance to see it yet because obviously it's only in 4 theaters and I don't live in any of those cities. But still, not just her. Allison Janney is getting rave reviews for her performance as the mother. And it looks like she's actually going to be getting she's going to be looking at some Oscar nominations too. So, yeah, I, Tonya, critically liked, 2-hour movie. Seems like a crowd pleaser. Seems like the kind of movie. But you got to wonder if people want to go see a movie about this. I can't believe they got this made. It's a pretty dark subject to turn into a comedy. Parts of it kind of remind me of Election by Alexander Payne. The writer is Steven Rogers, so Captain America wrote this. That's funny. Bucky's in this. I don't know who Steven Rogers is. He wrote P.S. I Love You, Kate and Leopold, Stepmom, and Hope Floats. I've seen all of those movies, and I'm not a fan of any of them. But I kind of like Kate and Leopold. What am I saying? That's not a bad movie. And the director is Craig Gillespie, who did The Finest Hours, which is, I hear, a pretty okay movie with Chris Pine. It's kind of like an old school movie, you know, like a man movie from back in the 50s. And $1 Million Arm, which had John Hamm in it. He's a very decent director. He did the remake of Fright Night, which I did not like at all. But he did do Lars and the Real Girl, which I did like, and Mr. Woodcock, which I think's okay. He's a decent technical director. I think he's just been limited by some mediocre screenplays, but apparently I, Tonya has a very good screenplay. So that should probably help him out. I'm surprised there hasn't been an SJW whitewashing controversy around Alita Battle Angel. It's probably because they don't care yet. Yeah, I agree. Election's great. It's one of my favorite comedies. And yeah, I kind of feel like this kind of has that, where it might not do that well. Election didn't do good at the box office. Very critically acclaimed, came out in 99, a great year, but yeah, it didn't do that great. So you never know. I, Tonya, like I said, this isn't a great performance. So it's a decent opening. We're gonna have to see. I'm gonna get some water first here. My voice is getting a little rough. Sorry. All right. Okay, so I, Tonya, okay opening, not great. Before we move up a little bit, I want to talk about Jigsaw for a second, because Jigsaw was stuck at under 100 million for a while. And I said it would need to break 100 million to really make an impact, because all the Saw films pretty much did that, except I think only one of them didn't do that, but they all broke over 100 million. And for this being a big return to the franchise and having a better than expected opening weekend with 16 million, but then, you know, it only did 37 mil domestic. Now the budget's low, only 10 million, but this was a good year for horror. A lot of horror movies made a crap load of money. So this, I said early on, this needed to break 100 million. I think for it to really be impressive, it's not like they didn't make a profit, but now they can go, hey, we released it and it made 100 million worldwide. Maybe the Saw franchise has a little life in it. So it just helps the studios, the directors, and everyone involved. I hear this is an awful, awful movie, and possibly even the worst Saw film, so that kind of sucks. Bunch of flashbacks again, which is what the sequels really got bogged down by, was way too many even the first film has too many flashbacks. It's a structure they didn't want to let go, because it worked. Game over. Yeah, it's Jigsaw. I want to say that it broke 100 million, so I've been kind of following that the last few weeks, so I think that's the last time we're going to check that movie, but we can officially say now. Wonder Wheel by Woody Allen went to 47 theaters this weekend. 24% increase, 155,000. It made 125,000 last weekend, so, it's still in 47 theaters. Oh, so it pretty much stayed, yeah. Oh, wait, no, before that it was in less theaters, so, yeah, that's not a great, because it jumped up quite a few theaters, so that's not exactly a great number. And it looks like a lot of other Woody Allen films that aren't the super acclaimed ones, this one's going to drop off. He's in the paper again, you know, he's controversial again now. All that stuff from the past is coming back, and people are trying to make a big deal out of it again. So, you know, who knows? But this film isn't getting very good reviews, so I don't see it holding very well. But it is a beautiful looking movie from everything I've seen. Alright, Loving Vincent. Isn't that, I think that's an animated film? Yeah, I think this is an animated film. It's in 218 theaters and made 5.7 million. Honestly, that's not bad, all things considered. Because Because typically if you make an animated film that's not Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, 3D, some big high concept with celebrity voice actors, it doesn't usually make a lot of money. Alright, I don't see anything else down here in the bottom worth really talking about. Let's see if Happy Death Day broke $100 million. It did, $112 million on a $4.8 million budget. So that really put it over the top, that final total there worldwide. Well, not final. There's still more to go, but that's a good total. The Mountains Between Us, starring Idris Elba. The Mountain Between Us. I said mountains. Starring Idris Elba and Kate Winslet, who aren't exactly box office gold. This had Chris Wright's work on the screenplay, who was famous for American Pie and The Golden Compass and Twilight New Moon. And it had a $10 million opening weekend. I guess they re-released this, or this is still out. I thought this was already out of theaters, but if that's $60 million worldwide on a $35 million budget, I don't see this making much profit. So, yeah, they must have, yeah, because it hasn't increased this weekend, so they must have put it in some theaters again, because I don't think it was, I think it was pretty much done. Call Me By Your Name, the very acclaimed film from this year, the gay romance movie that's a coming-of-age story. It's in 9 theaters. It had an opening of 412,000, and that was amazing. The screen average was 103,000. Now, it's odd. They still haven't gone wide with this movie, and by I don't even mean wide like 500 plus. It's shocking they haven't opened this in at least 100 theaters yet, because they went from 412,000 to 295,000 in 4 theaters. So, you know, it had a 28% drop, which isn't bad. Then they put it in 9 theaters, and it only drops 1%. And it's at 291,000. So it's holding okay. I just don't see this film catching on. This is what happens a lot with movies like this that have like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. This happened with Boyhood. It happened with Moonlight. It happens the movie, The Hurt Locker even. The movie comes out and it opens up really good in limited release the first weekend or two because people hear about the reviews. And then typically general audiences do not respond to these movies, to these art house kind of films. I mean, this is an issue that is pretty consistent across the board. Even There Will Be Blood wasn't a big movie. It did okay, you know, but that's what happens. They open and people go see it and they don't respond to it. Like, this movie, a lot of people went that opening weekend, and, you know, it's not like they haven't went wide enough, but I'm just getting the vibes from these holds that this film isn't going to do as well as, like, let's say Lady Bird or any of those films. Because even Boyhood only finished up about 20 mil domestic, and Moonlight was 27 million. Now, don't get me wrong, Moonlight ended up making 65 million worldwide on a $4 million budget, and 27 mil domestic, 37 foreign. So Moonlight is A24's biggest movie in a lot of ways. So that, you know, that film did well. And then they have the Florida Project. Now, The Disaster Artist looks like it's going to become their biggest film and pass Lady Bird, which looks like it's also going to be their biggest film. So they're having a good year. But Call Me By Your Name is a film. It's just one of those films where if you're like a film buff, if you're a movie nerd type person, you'll probably love this movie. And all the stuff that the critics are praising about it, you'll probably appreciate. But general audiences don't always respond to that. I mean, I remember I saw There Will Be Blood in the theater 3 times. I saw Pan's Labyrinth a couple times, you know. They didn't blow up the box office. You know, not everyone went to go see. You only have a limited audience for movies like this, I feel. Occasionally you'll get something like a Black Swan that breaks out and becomes a real big hit, but that's an exception. So, yeah, I don't really know. I don't want to say Call Me By Your Name's like a bomb or anything. I don't even know what the budget is, but I just don't think it's going to be doing that, I just don't think it's going to be doing that great. I was shocked that another James Cameron produced movie didn't look very good. Boyhood only has "It took us X years to make" gimmick as its marketing. Yeah, you just think people would have went and saw it, though, like how critics loved it, you know. It's just movies like that don't always do really well. And that just happens, you know. Like I said, it happened with Moonlight last year. You know, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Moonlight myself, but a lot of those, The Hurt Locker, a lot of those movies that are, you know, like, it's a masterpiece. They don't really get that far at the box office all the time. It usually has to have something about it, kind of like La La Land, where it has a really big gimmick with the whole musical thing and some big actors. What are the chances of Woody Allen's son being the one who was given the assignment to break the Weinstein story? That's interesting. Is Wonder Wheel ever going to go wide? I think I don't know if it ever will, honestly. It might just kind of wrap up if it doesn't do so good. I feel like Tanya might end up being an underrated classic sort of thing, and I'm going to see it, but not in the theater. Yeah, you know, Nightcrawler, that was a few years ago. That came out and was just like a classic, like overnight. Jake Gyllenhaal didn't get the Oscar nom. The film didn't do that great. It made like $30 million on a $10 million budget, but it wasn't a big hit or anything. It did okay, and it was kind of like, at the time, I was like, man, why isn't Nightcrawler a big movie? So that's always kind of an issue. David Fincher should have directed I, Tonya. That would have been cool. I would have definitely been into David Fincher doing I, Tonya. Totally. Do you like the Alita movie trailer other than the big eyes? Yes, I do like it other than the big eyes. And let me explain something here. Okay, right? Call Me by Your Name has a budget of $3.5 million. Okay, so that movie doesn't have to make a lot of money to be seen as a success, despite somebody probably purchasing it and then just, you know, the distributor having to get it out there. But I think Nightcrawler's like an amazing movie. I mean, it would only be a good movie to me if it wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal giving like this 10 out of 10 performance. Like, I'd agree with you that it's just kind of good as a movie, but him in it, he's like amazing in it, and it's kind of like watching him in that movie is like watching one of the great actors of our time giving one of those performances where it's like, oh, okay. I mean, I always thought Jake Gyllenhaal was great, but that was kind of the moment for me where I was like, oh, okay, you're Robert De Niro now. You know, you're that guy. You're gonna... For me, he pretty much puts everyone else to shame. Like, I don't really think there's anyone in his age range or anywhere competing with him at this point. For what he can do. I mean, at this point, I you know, if it was a few years ago, maybe, but he's got rave reviews for his performance in Sunday in the Park and George, with George, the Stephen Sondheim musical. Every movie he's in now, he's getting rave reviews. He was terrific in Nocturnal Animals, Stronger. Everything he's in now, he's just like golden in. And he's kind of like next level because he's reached that point as an actor where he's his performances are smart. And the intelligence of the performance is really what kind of elevates the whole thing to another layer, you know, because he treats Jared Leto's freaking awful. Jesus Christ. Jared Leto's only been good in 2 movies. Literally. He was good in Requiem for... He's kind of good in Fight Club, and he's good in Dallas Buyers Club. He's been bad on everything else. He's horrible in that, Jesus, what's his name? The guy who shot John Lennon, John David Chapman. I think he was terrible in that movie. Gosling's not as good as Jake Gyllenhaal. Not even close. Not even close. Gosling peaked in Half Nelson, and he's been great and stuff. Like, he's really good in La La Land, but that's not as good as Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. Here's the thing. Jake Gyllenhaal could have played a lot of the roles Ryan Gosling played. Ryan Gosling I don't think could have pulled off something like Nightcrawler as good as Jake Gyllenhaal did. I don't think anyone else could have played Donnie Darko. That's the thing about it. Like, he's one of those actors when he plays a role sometimes. I like Donnie Darko. Name another actor who could have pulled that off. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's kind of an idea of Ryan Gosling playing Donnie Darko that would have been cool, but I don't know. I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal's just got to a point where he's elevated it to another level. He's great in Prisoners. I mean, he can get a character with not much on the page. Gosling is great. I did like him in Blade Runner 2049, and I'm a fanboy. And I'm really liking Miles Teller right now. Who just plays himself? Are you talking about Ryan Gosling? I mean, Gosling does kind of play surrogate versions of himself, if that's who you're bringing up sometimes. Not all the time. I'd say, like, at least a few of his movies. But I love Gosling. I'm not going to crap on Gosling. I just don't know how much range he has. He seems a little limited in some departments. Well, Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, does Broadway and can sing and do all that. He has a much better voice than Gosling. I mean, I actually think he probably would have been better in La La Land because he's a better singer. And Jake's just kind of... Well, Daniel Day-Lewis isn't part of their generation, though. He's from a different time. I'm talking about, like, the actors in their 30s right now. It's called The Place Beyond the Pines, where he basically played his character from Drive. Back when Gosling was just like, I'm going to be stoic and not talk. I've liked Ryan Gosling in everything, man. He's in The Believer. Go see The Believer, one of his early films. He's amazing in that. And Half Nelson, I think, is one of the best performances of the last 10, 20 years. Half Nelson's one of my favorite movies of the last 10, 20 years. So I love... You know, if Gosling every role was as good as Half Nelson, then yeah, I would say, yeah, he's the best actor, but I don't think he's really ever reached that. Where Jake Gyllenhaal, I think his best performances are ahead of him. I really feel like Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be giving us great performances every year for the next few years. I can't... Like, he blew me away in Nocturnal Animals. I thought he was amazing. Him and Michael Shannon. And I think that's where we're going, well, you know, and I think Bradley Cooper's up there now. Bradley Cooper took a little while. When he finally started to get movies, though, that showed his acting ability. I think it's when he did that movie, God, what's it, the movie where Limitless. I think when he got that movie, that kind of started to show what Bradley Cooper could do. And as time went on, Bradley Cooper got better and better. And I think once he got Silver Linings Playbook and that, and I really like Bradley Cooper now. He's pretty great. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one, honestly, because I think there's Bradley. You know, those actors, they're all, you know. I just prefer Jake. I'm kind of. I like, once again, I don't think Bradley Cooper could have really done what... I think Bradley Cooper couldn't have played the Nightcrawler role. I think Jake Gyllenhaal could play every role Bradley Cooper's played. Like, I think Jake Gyllenhaal could have played Bradley Cooper's part in Silver Linings Playbook if he wanted to. He could have played the part in American... He could have been Chris Kyle, and it would have been the same thing, really. And I just don't... I've heard he is. I've heard Cooper is really good in The Elephant Man. I have heard that. I'll have to see that. I know that he has a good background in acting. It's funny with Bradley Cooper, you always see him in the Screen Actors Guild. Oh yeah, Tom Hardy. Yeah, Tom Hardy might be the best actor. What am I saying? All right, let me change my answer from Jake Gyllenhaal to Tom Hardy. Totally forgot about Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is kind of like he's kind of like amazing. He's kind of like Brando or something. He's great. I think even though he's in his 40s now, I think Casey Affleck's reached another level as an actor now. You know, I always thought he was decent, but he was always kind of dweeby looking to me and too much of a supporting actor. But Casey Affleck in the last few years has really become a handsome leading man, and I think just kind of found his place as an actor. And you really buy him. I really like him. I mean, I loved him in Manchester by the Sea, but I've liked him for the last few years. I think Casey Affleck's become a very good actor. Any thoughts on the finale of South Park 21? As mediocre... Well, see, the season finale didn't make it any better, man. You keep asking me this question like I'm supposed to think the finale helped the season. The finale made me more angry. They blow up Canada at the end. They ripped off their own movie. Tom Hardy sort of overacts. Really? Because any movie I could think of that he overacts in, I blame that totally on... Like, Christopher Nolan's the reason that Bane's over the top, not Tom Hardy. Everything that's over the top about Tom Hardy in that movie is Christopher Nolan, and everything that's over the top in some of the other movies he's been... Because I can think of the movies you're talking about, and to me, directly, those are the filmmakers. Zachary Quinto. Zachary Quinto's okay. You know, he's okay. I don't think he's great or anything. Oh, yeah, wow, WB doesn't want Zack Snyder to direct any more DC movies. Who knew? Who would have thunk it? Oh, Zach. Man, I am wore out, guys. I had a rough weekend. I was filming on Thursday. Then I was out Friday filming in, I mean, it was probably below zero out. And I was freezing from, I was out till 5 in the morning filming. I was out till 5 in the morning filming. And we were really cold, and then I had to film again the next day, and then and we had to use some fake blood and makeup, and that was a lot of fun. Actually, Saturday was fun, and then today's my anniversary, so it's been a busy weekend, and this is a weird box office Addict, because I was like, God, I was almost gonna hold this off till Monday, because I didn't know if I had the energy to do it. I'm so wore out. It's just been like, I haven't really, I just need to sleep and lay around. I'm so tired. You know, when you get really cold, it makes like your back hurt and stuff. Was Alita Battle Angel be a decent hit or a cult classic? I think it's going to be a hit. Okay, let me go back to the Alita thing. I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me go back to the Alita thing. Okay, does anyone remember when the first trailer for Avatar came out? The very first one, the teaser. It looked like crap, alright? It looked fake as hell. The Na'vi looked terrible, and everyone online made fun of it. Yeah, 3 years. Everyone made fun of it online. Okay, everyone across the board said this movie's gonna bomb. It looked fake. They talked about how bad the eyes and face look. Then you go see Avatar in the theater, and there's sequences in it where everything looks seamless. And it looks beautiful. And then the hype built because of the word of mouth, and then everyone went to go see Avatar. I think Battle Angel's going to be exactly the same. Do not doubt... I know you're going to say, oh, James Cameron's producing this. He's also really working on this. He worked on the screenplay for years. He was very involved with the special effects, the production, and all that. So here's my theory. I think we're all going to look at the trailer and go, man, that looks really fake and bad. And then when the actual movie comes out, like Planet of the Apes, the Planet of the Apes movie, the first one, War for the Planet of the Apes, it looked really bad when that first trailer came out. And then that movie came out and it was great. So my theory is Battle Angel, we're all going to say that, and then when the movie actually comes out, it's probably going to get an Oscar or something for special effects. That's my guess. I actually think it's going to have amazing special effects. I think all the stuff that looks bad in the trailer is going to look amazing. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It looks bizarre. Avatar looked like crap too. I agree with you. You have to understand, this is a movie that special effects rendering will not be done for months, and they're doing very complex, detailed special effects. You're not going to see what it looks like properly until the movie comes out. That's this kind of movie. It just is. It was the same thing with everything Wade has ever touched or anything. It's one of those movies. Like, you have to go see it in the theater because you're just seeing clips from a trailer, and it's not finished. It's like Life of Pi. Life of Pi, before you go see the movie, you weren't sure, and then the tiger looks real. Alita looks jarring. I agree with you, but that's only because we're watching a 2-minute trailer. You don't know the kind of world that's going to be established, the tone that's going to be set, how they're going to set up the eyes, how they're going to make that add in visually, how they're going to acknowledge her having the weird eyes. Like, I think it's all going to be a story beat. Honestly, I always thought Avatar teaser was one of the greatest. I liked it too, but everyone gave it crap at the time for the same thing. I just don't want to doubt James Cameron on this yet because special effects is that one thing he's always right about, and everyone else is wrong. So I'm just not going to jump the gun on that because I don't want to eat my words a year later when it wins an Academy, like next year when everyone's talking about how it's going to win an Oscar. Because I literally think it's going to look better than we all think it does right now. That's my opinion. Well, the current script is essentially based on Cameron's script. Yeah, basically Cameron wrote a 186-page script, and then Rodriguez came in and had to structure it and tighten it. And James Cameron liked what he did with the script, so he offered him the directing job. And here's the thing with Robert Rodriguez. He's a director that's great visually and terrible with writing. The best movie he ever made, in my opinion, was Sin City, and that's because it was based off Frank Miller's comic book. Yeah, but here, let me go on that. Frank Miller, though, there's the thing with that. Robert Rodriguez is bad when he writes his own screenplays. He's always visually been amazing. Like, think about From Dusk Till Dawn. The first half of that movie, when it's more like a Tarantino movie, is amazing. That part with George Clooney and Tarantino being the brothers and they're going around, that's an awesome movie. It's not till it gets to the Vampire Club and it turns into more of a Rodriguez film that it loses that appeal. He's a good director. He's just a terrible writer. He can't pick a script. Sin City has amazing scenes in it, and it's just because he has Frank Miller's material. Now, if you don't like Frank Miller's writing or material, you're not going to like that movie, and that's fine. But that's Rodriguez's best movie because he didn't write it. I mean, that's how it is. And this movie, he had very little to do with the screenplay. Most of this was James Cameron, and another guy worked on the script, and Rodriguez just came into structure. But Rodriguez... We've never really seen him do a big $200 million movie. We've always seen him do kind of more his own thing, low budget or indie. So I think what people don't get is that I think Rodriguez this is going to be that movie that really defines him in a way that we haven't seen before. Because I'm as critical as Rodriguez as anyone. He freaking sucks. But the type of thing with him is that you're having... I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm saying it's not going to be a success. See, I think that's a bold thing to say because I think literally, I mean, I agree with you, it could be, but I don't know. I have this strange feeling that this is going to be one of those things where we all say that and then the movie makes $350 million and $600 million. It could fall. It could fail. It's true. But I've said that about too many movies like this where I see an early trailer and I go, man, that's going to bomb. I remember the Planet of the Apes, that Rise with Caesar. I said, man, that movie looks terrible. James Franco, that trailer, an ape jumping at a helicopter. That looks so stupid. And then, you know, it's amazing, and it did really well. Batman Begins, I remember being that way. So, you know, I don't know. I have this, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm a genius or I have foresight, but I just feel like how James Cameron talked about this project, and I know how good the original source material is. And I just think that, Frank Miller is one of the great and worst comic book. I mean, his recent stuff is terrible, and his early stuff's really good. It's going to be Ghost in the Shell. Mainstream are going to be like, what the F is this? Yeah, but see, I think it has better marketing than Ghost in the Shell. That trailer had more mystery to it, you know? Ghost in the Shell had pretty bad marketing, and they kind of relied on that. This movie's trying to sell you on the concept of Battle Angel, not the material, not the IP. They're trying to say, hey, look at this emotional relationship with this guy and this girl. What is the mystery of her? Who is Alita? Who is she? You know, I think they have a chance to do that. If they market it, because this is just the teaser trailer. We don't know what the other trailers are going to look like yet. We don't know how good the special effects are going to be down the road. We don't, you know, we haven't seen a lot of stuff yet. Ghost in the Shell looked generic and boring in the trailer. So this trailer to me is already more interesting than Ghost in the Shell. Because even though I don't like Alita's face, I liked everything else in the trailer. I thought everything else was really good. I thought that Christoph Waltz looked good. I thought Jennifer Connelly looked good. I liked the scene where the guy's running on the stuff. I thought the dialogue sounded all right. It looked and felt more like a James Cameron movie than I was expecting. It didn't really feel like Robert Rodriguez. And I don't know. I just think the original source material is so good. Ghost in the Shell, they just kind of dropped the philosophy at the gate where Alita has an action movie. That game they played, that ball game they had, that, you know, that might be an amazing, and James Cameron really wants that in there, you know, like, and I don't know, I just feel like, Alita might be this awesome action movie or something. It depends on how good the movie is, it really does. It might be a bad movie. It could be. But if it's a great movie, I wouldn't rule it out being a box office hit. I actually think it could do well, personally. What's my top 5 of 2017? Jesus, I've barely seen anything. I feel like most of the movies I'm gonna like this year I haven't seen yet, like Shape of Water and Lady Bird and all. I haven't seen any of those movies that I think Call Me by Your Name. I think I would like a lot. I agree it is, but I once again Caesar. I think it is possible, like Planet of the Apes. I do agree with you. It's tough. I'm not. That's true, but I think there's a chance. Because if he can make it where the hype builds, like Gravity, you know, if people could say you got to go see Alita, the special effects are amazing. If the word of mouth starts to get that way, or people going, man, you got to go see this movie. It's the best looking movie in, you know, years. You know, people weren't saying that about Ghost in the Shell. They were just saying it looked good. That was it. But if people start coming up and saying, man, Alita's amazing visually, you know, that builds hype differently. I mean, we also have to factor in Ghost in the Shell wasn't a very good movie. It didn't have a good opening weekend either, but there was really no hype for it. You know, if we start hearing a few months from now this movie's good, who knows? You know, we really, you know, if we start hearing hype from, you know, some screenings where people are going, this is amazing, you know, then that might build up the hype for the movie. My top 5 of the year, Dunkirk would be my current favorite movie of the year, still, till I see some other stuff. Blade Runner 2049 would be number 2, by far. I still haven't seen The Florida Project. I'd like to see that movie. So, yeah, I was underwhelmed by Gravity, too, but that's what made the hype get built, was everyone kept talking about the special effects of it, and that's what, the whole movie was sold on that. You know, Alita might be the same way. People might be coming out of the theater saying, you know, or critics might be saying, you have to go see this visionary film that, you know, changed, that's what it is. My top 5 of the year, Dunkirk, Blade Runner, trying to think more on top of my head what else I liked. I didn't like that much. I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head that I like besides those two. Jesus, there had to be some. I mean, I like Thor Ragnarok, but I didn't love it. Oh, Logan. Logan I thought was very good. Especially the first 2 acts of Logan, I thought were really, really good. You know, I really like the first act of Logan's amazing. I think the third act kind of when it becomes Shane meets Thunderdome. So yeah, those 2 and then Logan. Logan's pretty great. I like that movie a lot. When the ads say visionary, run the other way. Yeah, that's typically how it goes. That is so yeah, so those are 3, and then I like, yeah, Yeah, I haven't seen much because all these movies, you know, I'm pretty picky, and I didn't like, I mean, they're not enough to say my top, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and stuff. You know, I didn't like that movie that much. A lot of the movies I didn't like this year, so it's kind of tough. I thought this was a pretty bad year. I didn't like It that much either. I gave It a 7. I thought It was okay. Actually, if we're being fair, my favorite movie this year was Twin Peaks Season 3. Actually, Twin Peaks Season 3 by David Lynch, then Dunkirk, then Blade Runner. Yeah. Then Logan, as of right now, because like I said, I haven't seen anything yet. I'm trying to think, was there something else? Yeah, Death Note. Oh, dude, the Mother... Yeah, that's why I didn't even do a review of Mother, because Red Letter Media and me almost say the exact same thing, and that's exactly how I felt about Mother, is what they said, and I was like, I don't need to review this. Yeah, all the films I want to see are indie films. I want to see Wind River and all that. American Made, I'd probably put in my top movies of the year. That's a really good movie. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say, I guess that's it for right now. Because, yeah, I have to see all these movies. I need to see Darkest Hour, Lady Bird, Three Billboards, Shape of Water, Call Me By Your Name, I, Tonya. You know, these are all the movies that I've been waiting to see all year. Everything else I really didn't care much for. I want to see Coco. I think I'd like Coco. I need to see that movie still. Thank you. I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. I thought it was good. I didn't dislike it, but it's not like something I loved. I thought it was an alright movie, though. I'm not negative on it. Yeah, but so far, I mean, everything I've seen this year, Dunkirk was pretty much the only thing I really got blown away by in the theater. Unfortunately, because I was really excited for some movies this year, you know. War for the Planet of the Apes is really good. Caesar the Third, that's a really good movie. It's not my favorite in the trilogy, but it's really good. I still like the first one the best. Oh, yeah, I want to see Disaster Artist, too. Oh, I like Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah. I think Spider-Man Homecoming's pretty good. Yeah, I'd say Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm not a big fan of Get Out. And I think Split's alright. I like the ending of Split a lot. I'd say, I forgot about Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought that was a pretty decent movie. I really like Michael Keaton in it a lot. So, yeah, and then, you know, Spielberg's got The Post coming out, and, there's just still a lot of movies to come out. Last Jedi's coming out. So there's, you know, a lot of the movies I have yet to see until they go a little bit wider, or when I get a chance to see a screener or something like that. So I'll let you guys know later. So, unfortunately, as of right now, I don't have much of a top 10 list, but I'll work on it. Okay, let's keep going up though. Let's see where we're at. Darkest Hour. Plus 617%. This is actually doing pretty good. 53 theaters. Gary Oldman seems like an absolute lock for the Oscar. If you go to Golden Derby or whatever where they do that, no one's picking anyone else. It's just like Willem Dafoe in the Florida Project. It feels like it's already locked up. So him playing Churchill. It's Dunkirk again, I think. It's around that time. I've heard good things. This is directed by Joe Wright, who did the terrific film Hannah, Atonement, and Pride and Prejudice. All films I like quite a bit. Not a big fan of any of his other films like Pan or The Soloist, but I think 3 of his films are really good. He's really good at tracking shots and all that. I want to watch this movie. It's not my kind of movie. I'm not really big on, you know, period piece historical biopics like that where somebody plays a character like that always. They always seem a little dry to me. I mean, like, I, Tonya is my kind of movie, but it's, you know, or American Splendor is one of my favorite biopics. I'm into more of experimentation with the filmmaking than I am at just traditional, the classicism style. I'm more into formalism when it comes to biopics. All right. Darkest Hour, though, that's a pretty, I mean, for 53 theaters doing that's pretty good. That's really good. The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's best reviewed film since Pan's Labyrinth. And it seems like this is going to be getting some Oscar nominations from the hype I'm hearing. This has 86 on Metacritic and 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like it's just a lock now for picture, director, screenplay, cinematography, set design, Sally Hawkins' performance for Best Actress. She's only really got competition in Frances McDormand, who seems like the front runner right now. Then you have... I mean, yeah, then you have, I mean, the music score. This is a very acclaimed film. Alexander Desplat, who's great. So 2-hour movie. I haven't seen this film yet. I like Del Toro. I'm mixed on him. Here's what I've always said about Del Toro. His foreign movies are great. Kronos, Devil's Backbone, and Pan's Labyrinth are all amazing movies that I love. His American films like Blade 2, Hellboy, Hellboy 2, Pacific Rim, Crimson Peak are very mediocre. When he makes American movies, he gets way into the comic booky, cartoony. He's trying to do this tone that's kind of self-aware in big-budget B movies. I'm not knocking people like that, but I'm not a fan of that at all. I think Pacific Rim is shallow junk. Crimson Peak is awful. I hate Hellboy 2. I think Hellboy 1's decent. I'm actually excited to see the new Hellboy. Everyone was so upset that Del Toro wasn't coming back, and I'm like, I'm glad he screwed up Hellboy. Not only did he not adapt the comics properly, in my opinion, outside of the design, the movies are gorgeous, he didn't tell the stories very well. I don't like the villains in either one of those movies, and I really don't like the stories that much. They got by on Ron Perlman and Abe Sapien and that, and the good stuff like that, and Del Toro's camera work, but not a big fan of the Hellboy movies, and they get rave reviews. I'm much more excited to see David Harbour playing that role, and who is it, Neil Marshall, I think, is directing the new one? I also love Desplat. I think he's amazing. He's an amazing, amazing director. I agree, but I thought For Love, not all of them. Stranger Things Season 1 is really good. Yeah, I think Pacific Rim's really bad, so I'm not a fan, but once again, Devil's Backbone, masterpiece. One of my favorite ghost movies of all time. Kronos is great, and I've heard Shape of Water falls in line, so I'm really excited to see it. I can't wait to see it. So I like Guillermo del Toro, and I do put him up there with like Peter Jackson, and he also kind of reminds me of Clive Barker, or Bernard Rose. His work always kind of reminded me of Candyman, or Hellraiser or something like that. Nightbreed. I think he kind of falls in line with some of that. He hasn't lost his sense of wonder from childhood. But this is in 41 theaters. I think, how many theaters was it in last weekend? It was in 2 theaters last weekend and did 166,000. But this is a great weekend. 41 theaters and 1 million. I mean, over 1 million. That's a great number. I mean, even though, you know, it's still limited, that's a huge increase. Yeah, 41 theaters and 1.1 million. That's a great number. That bodes well for the wider release. It's still very limited, so we don't know how the word of mouth is yet. There's probably just some hype because it's Del Toro and he does have a fan base. You know, I think his movies can always pull in 20 million. So we're going to have to wait for this to go wide. But all signs point yes, and I feel happy for everyone involved, the cast. This should play well through Christmas if audiences like it. My only fear is that it's going to be too art housey weird or something like that. And that'll be a little bit of a problem. And, you know, I wouldn't disagree with calling Del Toro over. He is overrated. He's overrated by a lot of people. No, I don't mean the budget 20 million. I mean, like, I could see him pulling in 20 million, like, domestically, just off his name. You know, he has a fan base of about that big, you know, 20, 30. You know, like Kevin Smith, he has a small fan base when he makes a commercial movie. Oh, This Week is dead. Yeah, you're not wrong. But Shape of Water, that's a good weekend. Bad Moms Christmas, 68 million domestic, 114 million worldwide. Hasn't reached the 183 of the original. But I gotta say, this is actually holding pretty well. It's maybe they should have waited to release it a little bit later. Maybe they opened it too early. But if you see now, it only dropped 22%. It's holding really well. So it should end up over 75 million domestic and 120 million worldwide. For a $28 million film, that ain't bad. It's not as successful as the first one, but it doesn't always have to be. 3 Billboards dropped 34% this weekend, 2.8 million, $18 million domestic. This is a film that definitely looks like it's going to be getting some Oscar nominations, in particular the acting. Just Getting Started, 3.1 million, 2,100 theaters. That's a pretty bad opening weekend with Morgan Freeman and Tommy Lee Jones. Typically when Morgan Freeman stars in these like old guy movies, like Going in Style and that Vegas one he made, Las Vegas. Yeah, like Las Vegas made 63 million and 134 million worldwide. That was huge on a $28 million budget. And then Going in Style made $84 million worldwide. But this one is one of his worst performers, because Morgan Freeman usually can bring in an audience, and Tommy Lee Jones. So, you know, if you look outside of the blockbusters, but when he stars in these movies for an older demographic, Dolphin Tale did really well a few years ago. So I'm shocked this didn't do better. I guess it just kind of fell through the cracks, and people didn't really like it. Oh, Jane Seymour's in this. Awesome. Jesus, and Rene Russo? Holy crap. Directed by Ron Shelton, who I believe is the guy who did Bull Durham. I'm pretty sure the guy who did Ron Shelton is Bull Durham and Tin Cup. He used to be a great writer. Bull Durham's one of my favorite movies. But yeah, this is one of those movies for old people, you know, to go see because they like the older actors and they want to go see a fun little simple movie and all that. You know, it's just one. I'm not saying old people don't like challenging, interesting movies too, but there is demographics for different things. But that didn't do too well. That's a bad opening for how wide it is. Lady Bird from Greta Gerwig, very acclaimed film. 3.5 million, 17% drop in 1,500 theaters, 22 million domestic. This is A24. This is on par to pass Moonlight. I think this might even make 35 to 40 mil domestic if they can hold it during award season and keep it out there. So this is going to be their most successful film domestically, although I do think The Disaster Artist is going to pass it. Yeah, this is Oscar noms aplenty. Probably going to get Best Picture, Director, Actress. Supporting Actress, I've been hearing is pretty much locked at this point for the mother. And I think the mom in this is it an Alice? I can't remember. It's the chick from Roseanne, the Roseanne's sister. I think it's Roseanne, and she's on Big Bang Theory. She's the mom of Sheldon, but she's most famous. But I think she plays her mom in this, and she seems like a lock for the Oscar from what I've heard. So that movie's actually doing pretty well. I think they wanted to call it Going Out in Style, but the leads didn't want to foreshadow their own death. That's hilarious, man. Will the Oscars possibly snub Dunkirk in favor of Darkest Hour? No, that's not happening at all. Dunkirk's going to get a Best Picture. No, I'm not saying Dunkirk's going to win, but it's not going to get shone. Darkest Hour has no chance at winning Best Picture at all. Darkest Hour is going to win Best Actor and maybe Costume Design or Makeup. It has no chance at Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. In fact, I don't even think it's going to get nominated for Best Director. Best Picture, maybe. But no, Dunkirk is still the front runner for Best Picture. Dunkirk's only competition really is with Call Me by Your Name, and Shape of Water's actually building momentum. And I would say, you know, even Lady Bird has a better shot. I'd actually say Darkest Hour's on the bottom of the list for films that are... Dunkirk is, I think, got way more going for it. Because it's got Nolan. It did better at the box office. It got better reviews. You know, Nolan has been nominated for screenplay twice in Best Picture. So people think the Academy hates him, but he's been nominated. So has Joe Wright. But, you know... I don't know. It just feels like they're gonna give Nolan he feels a little due, and I'm not saying he's gonna win, but I think he's a lock for nominations, and I don't think Darkest Hour has any chance of winning Best Picture. I've heard some people say it's a really great movie though. In what ways would Zack Snyder butcher Cameron's script if he had been given Alita Battle Angel? I don't think he would have. I think he would have just got tone wrong. I think he would have just been bad at directing actors. I don't think Rodriguez is great at that stuff, but he has shown that he can direct actors and do really cool stuff. It is Nolan's time. That's the thing. Nolan's it is his time. That's how the Oscars is. One for you, one for me, you know. He's had a decade of success. He finally made that critically acclaimed film. This happened, you know, it happens all the time with directors. And, you know, it's like when Alfonso Cuarón won for Gravity. It was finally his time to win. Although I do think Del Toro could sneak in there. Don't rule that out. Even though Dunkirk's a better reviewed movie, don't rule out that something like that could come in and sneak in. That does happen. Nobody saw Spotlight winning Best Picture. It doesn't mean Nolan won't win Best Director. Out of the last few years, Best Director hasn't matched with Best Picture outside of Birdman. The Revenant won Best Director and Spotlight won Best Picture. It's been... I'm trying to think. It's Gravity won Best Director, but 12 Years a Slave won Best Picture. So it hasn't been matching up. Ang Lee won for Life of Pi, but Life of Pi didn't win Best Picture. So, you know, Nolan could still win Director and the movie lose Best Picture. But I don't think Darkest Hour has a chance. Okay, so that's let's look at The Star. That's that Nativity animated film. It's actually been holding pretty well, but because it's just not doing that great. It's got a $20 million budget, 32 mil domestic. I just can't see them making much profit off of it, and that's the big thing. But like I said, A24's having a good year. Murder on the Orient Express, still kind of right beside Daddy's Home too. It's so weird how these films pretty much have the same box office domestically. It's so strange. Like, they've been $1 million, $2 million off. But 5.1 million. A few weeks ago, it didn't look like this film would cross 100 million, but because it had a really good hold on Thanksgiving and some very small drops these last few weeks, it's definitely going to pass that. So this is turning into a big hit, and my assumption that it would make over 250 million worldwide is not only confirmed, it's doing way better than that. If you go back and listen a few weeks ago, I was saying, oh, well, you know, if this can break 100 million, that'd be good, but it's going to rely on the international box office. And I was thinking 250 to 300. That looks like that's pretty much locked now because it's at 274, 182 million foreign. So I'd say it's going to make 300 million worldwide. I mean, at least. If not, it'll make a little less, like 290 something, but it should make more than that. So for a $55 million film, including marketing and everything still, this is Kenneth Branagh killing it once again. Cinderella was a big hit for him recently. Made 543 million worldwide on a $95 million budget. Of course, Thor was a big hit, and this is also a big hit. They're already talking about a sequel, and I totally get it. The international box office is greater for this, though. This pays off big time for actors like Johnny Depp and Daisy Ridley, Michelle Pfeiffer. But really, the success here is Branagh, putting himself in the lead role and being the director, even though he directs a lot of movies, just putting himself in there like that, and it's still being a hit like that. This was just a good idea for a remake. Really, in retrospect now, this was just a really good idea to make this movie. Kudos to Fox, the distributor. I don't know if they were also the ones who put the money up to make the movie, or they're just distributing it, but I think they were the ones. And if the Disney purchase goes through, this property might belong to Disney now. So that's interesting. Also be on the lookout for screenwriter Michael Green. Didn't he work on Logan and all that? And I think he also... I know he worked on Logan. He worked on something else. I can't remember. Yeah, he did have a good year. He's having like one of those years Simon Kinberg had, where everything's going his way and he's really building up in the industry. Okay, so that film's doing great. Also debate if Daddy's Home 2 was going to make 100 million, and it looks like it is locked for that too. So this film's actually doing really well. It's not going to reach the 150 million the first film did. It had a $20 million opening weekend, which was below the first film anyway, but it will make 100 million, and it should do well on Christmas and give it a nice boost to put it over 100 million. So with the $69 million budget, marketing and all that, you know, they're not going to make a lot of profit, but worldwide, it's at 142 million, and it's not done yet. So you know, I'd say they made profit off this movie, just not that much. And I'm sure Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg have a very big back end on this film. But Daddy's Home 2 and Murder on the Orient Express are both doing very good. For you know, and they've been out for a few weeks now. They're holding well. We're coming up on Christmas, so good release from both studios. They could have went a lot worse. Thor Ragnarok passed 300 million this week, and this is the third film from Marvel this year to pass 300 million. It is the 10th film that Marvel's had that has passed 300 million. So 10 films that have made 300 million domestic and more, if not more, because they've all made more, but like Avengers did 620. 833 million worldwide. So it's pretty much a lock now. What a lot of us thought, this is definitely going to make 850 million worldwide. So now this is past Wonder Woman. So Spider-Man, Guardians, and this film all passed Wonder Woman worldwide. Even though Wonder Woman won in the domestic battle, which was very impressive, Disney was still able to win in the international box office with 3 separate franchises. And then they have Infinity War coming out next year, which looks like it's going to be the biggest film ever. Because let's say this, right? This is a film that just has the Hulk and Thor in it, and it made 300 million domestic and 830 million worldwide. That's just one character. Infinity War is going to have him, Iron Man, Spider-Man, all that. So we're looking at a movie that I think is going to really dominate the box office. So Marvel's on a roll right now. I don't know if they've had success like this ever. Every movie they're releasing or working on anymore is making huge money. It's not just doing well; they're all doing well. It used to be just Iron Man did better than the other movies and all that stuff, but now they're all doing huge. Makes you wonder what the marketing was for Orient. I definitely think they spent some money on the marketing for Orient Express, but luckily it's doing so well worldwide, I don't think it's going to affect it much, you know. They probably did spend some money to market it, but it's doing really well at the foreign box office, which is what I think they were probably hoping for. It's probably why they cast a lot of famous actors to help with the international numbers. Plus, I don't even know why it needed to be 55 million. It's probably just because really it's just them on a train. Oh yeah, Infinity War is going to be huge. Infinity War is going to have over 200 million opening. There's just no way at this point, just because everything's going huge. Oh yeah, Michael Green worked on Blade Runner. That's right. Yeah, with Hampton Fancher. Okay, The Disaster Artist, which is our featured film of the week. This is A24. This is another release from them. This looks like with this opening weekend, it should pass Lady Bird if it holds well. This seems to have great word of mouth, though. The reviews are killer. There was some Oscar talk early on, although that's kind of died off. It seems more like a Golden Globes movie is going to happen here. Like James Franco might win a Golden Globe. Not the Oscar, but it's already had 8 million domestic now with this weekend. It's already been out. I think it came out last weekend. We'll have to go look. I don't know how many weekends it's been out. Last weekend, it opened to 1.2 million in 19 theaters, which was huge. That was a terrific opening. And now it made 6.4 million. Excuse me, 6.4 million in 840 theaters. So it went wide this weekend. It's a wide release. But 6.4 million is a good opening weekend. This is a $10 million film. I've heard rumors it actually costs more than that, and they're just saying 10. I've heard it actually may have cost 15 to 20. Anyway, yeah, who knows what the marketing is. They did seem to spend quite a bit, so this is going to have to rely on the worldwide box office, and I don't know how much of there is an audience out there that knows about The Room internationally. I know it's a big cult film in America. And Tommy Wiseau's kind of a character in America. Also, you know, James Franco's not a total dud at the box office. It does have Seth Rogen in it. I thought the trailer was very good. So, you know, everything's kind of going this film's way right now. We'll have to see how it holds around the holidays. But 8 million domestic on a $10 million movie is not bad. That's a good opening weekend. We'll have to see how it holds next weekend. But, you know, they still haven't released this super wide. I mean, this might be a film that eventually gets out there in over 2,000 theaters if it can still hold really well. And this might end up making some money, like 50 million or something, you know. Don't doubt that. That is possible. And a lot of people are estimating that right now off this weekend performance. James Franco is the better Franco. Well, Red Letter Media doesn't like half the things they talk about. And I just, you know, I mean, they're kind of weird. Like, you know, they think Blade Runner 2049 is better than the original, and I'm just sitting there like, okay. And then they love Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and I'm like, oh, alright. But then they hate other movies, you know. I don't know. I agree with them, and their reviews are amazing, but I don't always agree with them. Sometimes they just think a movie sucks, and they're not contrarians, but, you know, they don't, you know, they'll crap on a movie that's okay sometimes. I like a challenge, beloved. The Room is one of those so bad it's good. Oh, yeah, totally. Okay, so the Disaster Artist, though, James Franco, this is a big deal for him. He's a director, and he's made nothing but movies that no one has saw. None of his films have even made 100,000. They've all gotten terrible reviews. They've been shown at some festivals. He's written books. He's done paintings. He's not been very successful outside of acting. As an actor, you know, he's gotten an Academy Award nomination. He's been in some hit movies like This Is the End or Spider-Man. He's got a good group of friends and all that. But this is his first film as a director to actually really get some notice critically and financially. So for him, this is just a big deal. Also for Tommy Wiseau, who's been around at all the interviews and been going everywhere with Franco. Wiseau's having a success. I mean, this is really making Tommy Wiseau a celebrity in a new way too. So for everyone involved, this is successful, but mainly Franco and Wiseau. This is really performing well and showing that The Room does have a bigger audience than just like a very small base. It actually, and even just as a premise, you know, years ago Ed Wood was a bomb, and Ed Wood's one of my favorite movies. It's Tim Burton's best movie, and one of my favorite movies. And it was about a bad filmmaker, and it only made $5 million domestic on an $18 million budget. And it was released in 623 theaters. So audiences really didn't respond to Ed Wood, unfortunately. Wow, it was only in theaters 4 weeks. Well, not 4 weeks total. Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing about it. They went wide with it, and then it just had these big drops. And audiences never... I don't get it. I don't know why audiences didn't like Ed Wood. I guess it was just one of those things in the 90s. It didn't catch on. But, you know, I was worried Disaster Artist was going to kind of be that way. But it seems to be catching on a lot more. And James Franco seems to be winning with audiences on this one. Apparently it's his best performance since 127 hours. Okay, Wonder, the hit film with Jacob Tremblay, 30% drop, 8.4 million. It has made $100 million this weekend in 3,500 theaters. We're at $129 million worldwide, based off a hit book directed by Steven Chbosky, who is the writer and director of Perks of Being a Wallflower, the book and the movie. Perks of Being a Wallflower did okay. It wasn't that big of a hit. This is a huge hit for him. 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. I could see this getting an Oscar nomination for makeup, possibly adapted screenplay, and Jacob Tremblay might get a supporting acting nomination, even though he's the lead character, so it really should be lead. But, you know, you never know how they'll do that crap. But this is huge for Owen Wilson and Julia Roberts. They haven't been in a hit movie like this in a long time. Julia Roberts in particular hasn't been in a movie this successful in years. $20 million budget, though. The marketing was, you know, it had a pretty big marketing campaign, but there's no way they're not making a profit. And the movie's not done yet. It's still got a ways to go. And the holidays are coming up. So I could see this making $130 million domestic, if not more. So one of the little hits of the year, $27 million opening weekend. Wonder has held on and become a wonder at the box office itself. All right, Justice League from Zack Snyder. $9.5 million, 42% drop. I got to give Justice League credit for staying at number 2 these last 2 weeks, even though the word of mouth's not great, the reviews aren't great. This movie is holding better than Batman v Superman did, or even Suicide Squad. The problem is those movies had way better opening weekends. Like Batman v Superman opened to $166 million. Suicide Squad opened to $135. Really, the opening weekend hurt this movie the most. Because if you look at it, after the opening weekend, even though it had a 56, 59, 42% drop, if that opening weekend had been like 150, 160 million, this wouldn't look as bad. It's just because the opening weekend was so crappy at 93 million. This is a $300 million movie, 150 million marketing, production costs, and that. They have 450 million in this. This is not going to make 300 mil domestic. Some people are saying they think it could reach 265. I don't. I think it's going to have a hard time reaching 250, let alone 265. Even if it does make 250, that's a terrible domestic showing for Justice League. Wonder Woman did better. Batman v Superman did better. Man of Steel did better. Thor, Spider-Man did better this year. Guardians did better this year. This hasn't even got to Logan's numbers yet domestically. Now, worldwide, it's doing a little bit better. 400 million foreign, 613 million worldwide. But once again, for a Justice League movie, that's not good. That's not good at all. For all the big actors in this, the fact that this... I remember a few years ago arguing with people about Batman v Superman's performance, and they said, yeah, but this is just the setup movie for Justice League. That's the one that's going to make the big bucks. And I go, no, you don't get it. Man of Steel was supposed to make big bucks, and it didn't. So then they put Batman in Batman v Superman. And then that didn't make the money they expected it to make, and was a bad thing for Justice League. Like, when this made $873 million worldwide, this was not a good sign for Justice League's performance. This just showed how crappy the word of mouth was going for the... Suicide Squad was a better showing, honestly. You know, just because it made more profit than this movie and performed better than I think a lot... Because we didn't know how Suicide Squad was going to do. Of course, Batman v Superman was going to be a hit. You know, domestically at least. But this, you know, the fact that Wonder Woman did better than this domestically and all that. But yeah, I remember at the time people saying Justice League was going to be the big one, and that's just so funny now in retrospect because Batman v Superman is going to be way ahead of Justice League's final total. I mean, it's funny how they almost went backwards. They went down. I think this is going to have a hard time, you know, this Man of Steel might end up having the biggest worldwide gross. I don't know how much, this really is almost done. They've released it in every market at the international box office, and it's almost done. And Star Wars is going to kill a lot of the theaters for this movie. And a lot of its IMAX screens, all that stuff, the stuff that's really helping that little extra bit of money. It's going to be gone when Last Jedi comes out. So, I don't know, this could make 700 million worldwide. But I'm not gonna confirm that yet. But even if it does, that's a terrible showing for a $300 million movie with all these big these big characters in it. Not even big actors, but you know, you could say Gal Gadot's a star now because of Wonder Woman, and Ben Affleck's certainly a star. So yeah, I said for months I thought the Wonder Woman thing was gonna help push this over and really help with the hype and all that. But I just kept excluding from some of you guys how bad the trailers were. I kept going, yeah, but Wonder Woman's like their Iron Man now, so she'll give a boost to this character, all this. And, you know, I kept saying that it'll at least open over 100 million, because Wonder Woman opened over 100 million. So Wonder Woman people are going to go see this. But I never factored in just how terrible the trailers were for Justice League. Like, even if you didn't like Batman v Superman, you have to admit that first trailer had some good stuff in it. Same with Man of Steel. There was good stuff in the trailer. And I think Momoa has some star power, but not too much. You know, I think he has star power in the sense that he's attractive and women like him, and he was on Game of Thrones. You know, he's an actor from Game of Thrones. But, like, they try to say Emilia Clarke has star power, and she really doesn't. Neither does Kit Harington. They do in Game of Thrones, but not anything else. What is it with movies like Justice League or Batman v Superman, positive early on reactions? It's when they show people early screenings and people all applaud and say they love it. Godot is probably the biggest thing in entertainment 2017. She definitely had one of the biggest career moments this year playing Wonder Woman, for sure. You know, she definitely, like, her, you know, I mean, she definitely had the biggest career shift this year. She became a superstar. I mean, she went from, like, a known actress to being, like, a big actress overnight, you know. That definitely boosted her to another place. Yeah, I don't think he's a very good actor, Jason Momoa, but unfortunately, I'm a man, so the things about him that are really likable, I don't always see, but to women, he's, he's what women like. Okay, let's get up to Coco, man. Again, let's talk about frickin' Coco. Oh my god, this movie. It won't go away. The Pixar film. Last week I kept saying Pixar because I'm from the South, so I'll say things all Southern sometimes. I kept saying Pixar, but the Pixar film, Coco. Directed by Lee Unkrich or something. I'm not quite sure how to say that guy's name. I don't want to get it wrong. With the score by Michael Giacchino, and it's got a $50 million opening weekend, and it's made $135 million domestic. Now, this is a film that cost from $200 to $225 million, and this isn't a great domestic showing for a movie that cost that much. That's funny. I think he's been cast as meathead type roles. You're not wrong, but Aquaman might change that when that comes out, you know. The Pixar, yeah. The great Pixars. But it made a... This film's going to have to rely totally on its international box office. Now, here's the good news. The box office for the foreign has been amazing for this movie. It's already at $254 million, and it looks like it's going to go up even more than that. Now, don't get me wrong, the holidays are coming up, and this is going to hold well during then, but it had that 45% drop. A 33% drop's a lot better. And like I said, the holidays are coming up, and that's certainly going to be a good thing. But for a film that cost this much, $200 million, it really needed to do better, like $250 domestically to $300 million. And right now, the highest I could see this going is $220. I can't see it doing much more than that. $220 seems like the top off for me. Even with good hold, because it's at $135 right now after 3 weeks. So 3 weeks, $135 million, but the international box office is great. This should make $400 million foreign, if not more. So we are looking at a film that's going to make $600 million worldwide. Now the question is it going to make $650 or $700 million? Well, that depends. That's what we're going to have to see. But it should overperform in all of its Latin markets and that. So the assumption should be that. So. Despite its big budget and marketing costs, I still think Coco's going to make, is going to make a bit of profit, but I don't think it's going to be one of their bigger hits. I think Pixar is going to definitely have a lot more down the road. The director drops acid, but whatever. I like her work. What director? I'm not sure. Oh, The Bad Batch. Oh, yeah, sorry. Isn't Alita Battle Angel just another classic anime? I mean, yeah, but, just like comic book movies, eventually somebody's got to get it right, like a video game movie. Someone's eventually got to make the right one. I mean, comic book movies used to be kind of a joke. They would, only Batman seemed like a viable franchise for a while, or Superman. Then it got to the point where now comic book movies dominate the entire genre, everything in movies. So that could happen one day with video game movies or with anime. Yeah, it's just nobody done it right, so... Is getting near the nipples tattooed painful? I don't know. I'm assuming it would be a little bit painful, but I can't be that. I have 4 tattoos, but I've never had one in that area. I know getting your nipple pierced hurts really bad. Cameron wrote, he wrote 186 pages for that movie. It's crazy. That's the thing. Here's my thing with Battle Angel. I think it's going to be a little bit of a poltergeist situation, if you guys know what I mean. Like, I think Robert Rodriguez is directing the movie and doing a lot of it, but I also think James Cameron's directing a lot of the movie and involved with it. I think James Cameron worked on the storyboards, and doing the storyboards is very much like directing. And I could see a lot of that. I think James Cameron's going to be... I think he's more involved with that movie than people know. I think he's working on Avatar and he was working on that movie, and I could see him, you know, just like Spielberg was doing E.T. and Poltergeist, I could see James Cameron talking to Rodriguez on the phone and making decisions and stuff like that. So I think James Cameron's going to be more involved with that movie than people think at this point. She wants to do a biopic on Hugh Hefner. I would love to see... I want Harmony Korine to do a biopic on Hugh Hefner. But I'm not saying Coco's doing bad. It's just not one of their bigger hits. You know, it's not doing Inside Out numbers. It's doing better than Cars 3 did. But come on, the Cars franchise lost all momentum outside of merchandise. I don't see this movie selling a lot of merchandise, though. That's something I kind of worry about. I have a feeling this isn't going to sell a lot of shirts or toys, which should hurt. But you know, let's look at their last few films and see how they did. Because let's see if I can find... Because, yeah, really, the biggest Disney films recently haven't been them. It's been just Disney, like Zootopia made $1 billion. Or Moana got great reviews. That was a big hit. But Inside Out did really, really well. It made $857 million worldwide. Monsters University made over $700 million worldwide. Brave made like 500-something million. But then you have Toy Story 3 and Finding Dory, which both made over $1 billion. And I'm assuming The Incredibles 2 should be on par to do that as well. But... when they do their original films, it's either, you know, the film either is a massive hit, like how Finding Nemo was, or Inside Out, or when Monsters Inc. first come out, or you have the, like, WALL-E, where it just does all right. This is just doing all right, domestically. Like I said, not a bomb or anything, it's just doing okay, because it's an expensive movie. This is a $200 million movie. This isn't a cheap movie. This isn't a $150 million animated film. It's a big budget one. But, like I said, the international box office seems to be great. I could see this making 450 there, so this could make 650 to 700 million. So they're definitely going to make profit. It seems like a lock for the best animated Oscar at the Academy Awards. So good move for Coco, the director, everyone involved. You know, the culture and the you know what it's celebrating, the Day of the Dead and all that. That might only have a certain reach too. You know, the kind of movie it is, it may not have that universal appeal. I hear it's a universal movie in a lot of ways, but. Sometimes just with animated, like How to Train Your Dragon, the first one was this huge surprise hit, and then the second one domestically didn't do as well. It actually really underperformed, and it was, you know, it was a loved movie, and you just thought, oh, that franchise is big. You know, it's weird with animated films sometimes. Sometimes the audience doesn't come back, or sometimes the film you think, you know, I think everyone thought Coco was going to do a little bit better than this, but once again, it's not doing bad. Just, you know, it had a really, really big opening weekend, and it doesn't seem to be, you know, really, you know, this weekend I think should have been in the 20s. It just doesn't seem to be a movie audiences are super in love with. They just like a lot. But that you know, that's how it is. And like I said, WALL-E wasn't a huge hit when it came out. I mean, it made money, but it wasn't as big as Up and some of the other movies. And, you know, they have their films that really made the big money, and that was like Finding Nemo and the Toy Story franchise and all that. Let's see if there's anything I missed. Titanic still out in its 20th anniversary release. 60,000, 20% drop. Titanic's at 659 million worldwide, 659 million domestic. Well, it's only been out for 2 weeks. That's really good numbers. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Like, it only brought in, it only brought in 64,000 this weekend. They're at 600. Oh wait, never mind. That's an 85% drop. My bad. I was looking below it at The Foreigner. My bad. The Foreigner had a 20% drop. My bad, guys. I agree. Coco might have played a little bit better. Yeah, that's the thing. Day of the Dead is very Mexican. I just don't know how much appeal that has to everyone. So I'm not really sure that was enough. I don't, you know, it's like that movie Book of Life. It didn't do great either. And I just don't think a lot of people celebrated, Americans or anywhere around the world. So it's just one of those things. And I think that might be hurting Coco, that a lot of people don't really know much about the subject matter. Not that Moana wasn't a hit with the different culture and you know, movies like that, but then I think about the New Orleans thing with The Princess and the Frog and how that didn't connect with everyone domestically. You know, it happens. That's funny, though. Faces Places. This is a very well-reviewed film. Like, a lot of hype for this movie about being like an amazing movie. It's made 541,000. Was 42 theaters. Let There Be Light. Isn't that the Hank Williams movie? Oh wait, no, that's that Christian film. That's right. Let's see where Victoria and Abdul's at. We've been following this movie the last few weeks. 63 million worldwide. That's doing really well. Good for Stephen Frears. Let's see if The Foreigners went up somewhere, the Jackie Chan action film. Yeah, it has. 139 million. Shoot. Yeah, this might make 150 million at the pace it's at right now. That's good numbers worldwide. Tyler Perry's Boo 2, 48 million. Way below the original Medea Halloween film. That made 73 million. Last Flag Flying, Richard Linklater's recent film, and his worst reviewed film in a long time. He's kind of been on a roll critically, not financially. He's never really been a big financial guy, but, you know, before Midnight, Boyhood, Everybody Wants Them were all super acclaimed, me and Orson Welles. This is his worst reviewed film since Fast Food Nation, so he kind of keeps well. It's crazy because it's got Lawrence Fishburne, Cranston, Steve Carell, but it's not doing that well at the box office either. Unfortunately, you know, I don't want people to fail. And I like everyone involved with that movie. I wish it had done a little bit better. But I felt the same way about Stronger and Jake Gyllenhaal and David Gordon Green. That movie just came and went. And, you know, when it was out there, it felt like it was getting... I mean, I really think Jake Gyllenhaal could have won Best Actor had that movie done better. But because it just came and went and bombed and nobody liked it, it's like the hype went away. Because his performance was really getting that kind of acclaim at first. But, now everyone's just talking about Gary Oldman and the kid from Call Me By Your Name. So they might have missed their chance with Stronger. Jake might get shut out again unless they campaign for him really hard during award season. And since the movie's out of theater, maybe they can send screeners around and get him a nomination, you know, at the very end. Because, you know, sometimes people get nominated for movies that nobody saw. Julianne Moore won from that movie, Still Alice, and nobody saw that. That movie didn't do that well, so it happens. It actually happens more often than people know. The Iron Lady with Meryl Streep wasn't a big hit. Domestically, it did well worldwide, but... see if I'm missing anything here. Not really. Okay, so there's the story of the weekend. Shape of Water opens, expands in limited release, and does amazing. Shape of Water's really the one that's impressive the most. That 1.1 million in 41 theaters is amazing. It's increased from last week, and that's a good sign. Call Me By Your Name seems like it's not doing as great as some of the other films in limited release, but... it's got a low budget, thank God for that. The Man Who Invented Christmas is already dropping, but not too bad, starring Dan Stevens, who I'm a big fan of. I, Tonya opened in 4 theaters and did okay. 61,000 average is really good, but we're going to have to see how that holds next weekend. And James Franco went wide with The Disaster Artist, A24, and then went wide. And it had a really, really good opening weekend, which shows good length down the road. And for a $10 million movie, that should be a good sign, all things considered. So A24 right now has Lady Bird out and The Disaster Artist. So those are both doing really good right now. And I think Lady Bird, you know, at least going to make 30 million domestic. So it's really catching on in that, like in... it's kind of performing where recent Wes Anderson films have done, like Moonrise Kingdom. You know, I see it kind of performing on par with that movie, where it's that little indie darling that actually caught on with some people. Just Getting Started opened this weekend and totally bombed. It's got a low budget of 22 million, and I'm sure it'll hold okay because of its audience, but that's just a bad opening weekend. Oh, and Murder on the Orient Express and Daddy's Home 2 are both doing really well. In particular, Murder on the Orient Express is really doing well when you consider everything in the worldwide box office of it. So, yeah, it's all the movies are kind of balancing out right now. It's a slow weekend. There wasn't really many new releases, and everything else is just holdover, so it's helping everyone at the box office because, you know, you're getting to share the wealth because not all the new stuff's opening the last few weeks. But like I said, Last Jedi is coming, and that should affect all of these movies. It should put a dent in every single movie that's out here. So that's next week, and that's going to really steal all the money. Isn't that next week? And I'm pretty sure, yeah. So, yeah, so I guess the question for the week is, what's your opening weekend prediction for The Last Jedi? That's really the thing that we got to think about. Yeah, I really want to see Good Times, like a lot. I want to see Good Times really, really, really bad. Oh yeah, no, I really, really want to, with Robert Pattinson. That movie looks amazing, and I've heard it's just that my kind of movie. I'm a fan of those directors. I saw their first film. Cranston is not transitioning to the big screen yet. I don't think he has as a box office draw, but I think as an actor he's been fine in movies. But I agree that he hasn't really been able to bring in a big star impact. What will be the impact of The Foreigner on the career of Chan and Brosnan? I think the Suits might want another sequel or movies with both that. I could see it happening because of the international box office. That's true. I feel like Jackie Chan, though, did kind of do it as like, I'm just going to do this one more time and move on. I don't think he really plans on doing that many movies. Oh, Cliff Martinez did the soundtrack. That's awesome. I'm a big fan of Richard Linklater. I'm a big fan. I mean, you know, I'm from Texas. He's one of my heroes. Oh, the fire in California. I saw a guy save a wild rabbit from the fire there. I thought that was pretty nice. I mean, I try to see, you know, the sympathetic side. I don't want a bunch of people. Fire is very inconvenient. I hope people work out. I hope it works out for them. Didn't Trump just call it it's like a tragedy or something, or an event, like they have to send the government in there now or something, or the guard. I'm not sure. Yeah, I just read that like a day or two ago. He officially came out and was like, "This is bad." You only think The Last Jedi is going to open to 117 million? Dude, come on. Come on, dude. You got to go higher than that. That's too low. Like, I'm trying to be nice, because I want you to, I mean, at least say 150. 117's insane, man. Come on. For Star Wars? Yeah, I loved Everybody Wants Some. Actually, I think that came out last year. That was like in my top 10. And so was Bernie, and so was Boyhood, and so was National Disaster. Yeah, yeah. Didn't he just say it sounds bad, you know? What are they saying is the top estimate for Last Jedi? For Last Jedi, I'm hearing about on par with The Force Awakens, which was, what was that, 247? So I'm hearing around 235 to 240, which is what I think the top out point would be too, would be the 230. My guess is 210. I think 210 makes sense, but I could see it opening low. I could even see in the 190s. Yeah, 190 seems like Age of Ultron. Yeah, but you guys, when we're done, you guys could put it in the comments. That's for people who, when this video's over, if you want to comment, leave so we can see who was the closest. But I'm going to say 210 for Last Jedi. But I could see higher or lower. You know, if I was a betting man, this would be an over-under. So we're doing over-under. Okay, so you're going to say 190? Are you going to say 190 for Last Jedi? I'll say 210. Just I'm playing it safe, but I definitely could see it coming in lower. I agree. I just don't want to jinx myself. So yeah, okay, so I see a lot of you saying 200 to 190. That seems about right. I could see that, about 200. That makes sense, about what the Avengers opened, but I don't think the hype's there either. I don't think there's nearly as much hype as there was for Force Awakens. A lot of people seem to think there is, but I don't think they realize that, like, it's just a different time. There wasn't that 30-year wait and all that. It would shock me if it did as well as Force Awakens. I can't really see it. I just can't. It would honestly be the biggest shock to me this year if Last Jedi did as well as Force Awakens. And that doesn't mean it won't make a lot of money. That doesn't mean it won't have a huge opening weekend and make a lot of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, no matter what, Last Jedi is going to kill at the box office. You know, it's only when we're comparing it to Force Awakens we talk about it that way. Like, it's going to be the biggest movie this year, like, in a lot of ways. That's the thing. People don't know who Rian Johnson is. Harrison Ford's not in this one. They're selling it way more on the new cast in Luke, which is fine, but the Luke gimmick only really paid off that first time, I think. And, you know, people don't love Rey, Poe, and Finn like they love the original characters. They claim they do, but they really don't. So it's really was early reactors are chimping out about it. Yeah, it does seem weird. It seems like they don't want to say there's bigger flaws. Because I've been reading a lot of that on Twitter, that Last Jedi's really long and has a second act that's really flawed, but people don't want to just say it. Because I was reading some people saying, well, it's as good as The Force Awakens, and I'm like, as good as... Jesus, if it's that level, like, Rian Johnson couldn't make a better movie than J.J. Abrams? What the hell? Yeah, I've been hearing some negative things, too. I've been hearing some bad stuff, too, but... The last Star Wars film I saw was Spaceballs. Hey, man, that's fine. Yeah, Han Solo was, like, the biggest character. He was huge. That's the thing. Fans loved him and Harrison Ford. So him coming back was a big reason that movie did well, too. Just like when he played Indiana Jones. And that's not a factor now. And even it's still Star Wars, though. I mean, Rogue One did huge. Rogue One, but it had Darth Vader in it. You know, this doesn't have as many of the icons, but it still has Luke Skywalker, and Carrie Fisher helps, but she's, you know, I don't think she's as much of a pull as people claim she is. I think her death is going to help this movie. But I really don't think Carrie Fisher's this big. I mean, I love Carrie Fisher. I think she's an amazing actress and comedic actress especially, but I mean, I don't think Last Jedi is going to get bad reviews. I just don't think it's going to get critically acclaimed like people are thinking. I think a lot of people think it's going to get like 95, but a lot of that hype and positivity that Force Awakens got died off, and I don't think it's there for this movie. That's the thing. Han felt like a real guy. He was the audience. You could really connect with him. He was like the... And Harrison Ford just had more charisma. You could tell he was going to be a movie star. You know, he was the cowboy in this crazy sci-fi universe that you could really attach yourself to. You know, he was human. What makes Battle Angel Alita one of your favorite comics? I mean, I don't know if it's one of my favorite comics, but I'm a fan of it. I'm definitely a fan. I mean, I'd say just energy and pacing. There's a kinetic energy to Battle Angel, and the artwork and the way that it moves and the pacing of it, the way the story gets told. You know, when you see he had hell of charisma in American Graffiti. I agree, big time. Very good. That's the thing. He steals the first Star Wars. New Hope is Harrison Ford's movie. Mark Hamill's not that good in it, and Carrie Fisher can't decide if she has an accent or not, and Harrison Ford just comes in and steals the movie right away. He definitely does it. When Last Jedi was filming, it seemed like Ryan had the reign on Star Wars. Then they gave it back. Yeah, but they're letting Rian Johnson do his own trilogy now, so... You know. Oh, I know. So many people gave Force Awakens 10s across... It was like a 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 movie. So many people gave 9 or a 10. Who would you have direct a Gundam movie, Pat, and what Gundam series would you have made? Well, I think if you're going to do Gundam, you have to go back to Mobile Suit Gundam, Amuro Ray. Kid lives on a colony with his father. There's a war going on. His father designs a Gundam. He has to leave with the Gundam and join a ship in the military and then work his way up, and he's the only one who can pilot it. I mean, that's your story. It's like Star Wars. You got the Luke Skywalker hero's journey, because Gundam Wing I would like to see. I'd like to see those characters, and I do think you could do a trilogy with Gundam Wing about the you know, teenage boys who are basically terrorists who go down on a mission that they find out what they were all set up to do, and they have their own Gundams. But you know, I think there's I would actually too, I would like to see a Gundam what's it called, War in the Pocket, I remember it was called, but 0080, where it's just a war movie. And it's that little boy, and he meets the girl that's on the one side and the guy on the other side, and then they both, like, die at the end, and the movie ends... And, I mean, not the movie, but the show ends with him just crying. It just ends with him crying, and it's amazing. Pat, every decade seems to have a cool comedy with a ton of actors that are famous. American Graffiti, Fast Times... Yeah, it's true. It's a trend you see in the early... Definitely Fast Times is very much that movie of the 80s. I'd say Superbad was that movie for today. Even if you don't like that movie, everyone in that movie kind of went on to become much bigger than they were. Like, Bill Hader's bigger now, Seth Rogen's bigger now. And he was already getting big because of Knocked Up. Michael Cera was big for a little while. Jonah Hill's had a very consistent career. So that was one of those movies too. Or even 40-Year-Old... But, you know, I know what you mean, like the hangout movies. Tarantino calls them the hangout movies. My favorite Star Wars, Empire. Easy. Empire Strikes Back is the best one. Best directed, best written, best acted. Which Gundam Wing suits would you choose for the Wing films? The classic TV or the EW design? I would go classic TV just because the Wing thing with Wing Zero might look a little stupid in a movie, even though I like it. But maybe mix it up, maybe change the designs a little bit too. Are you excited for Black Mirror? I'm very excited. I'm a big Black Mirror fan. Even though the new seasons aren't as good as the original British show, the first two, it's still good. And San Junipero from Season 3 is amazing. Here's the thing with Black Mirror now. Charlie Brooker just needs to expand himself a little bit more. He's getting too obsessed with the same theme of technology, and he keeps doing the same thing a lot. He needs to leave that a little bit and maybe do something more fantasy. Or, you know, because the Twilight Zone, they used to mix it up. He's a really good writer. He's just obsessed with the same. I think the Christmas special in that is amazing, and the second episode of Black Mirror from season 1 is one of the best episodes of television of all time. There's at least 3 episodes of Black Mirror. The 3 are the best episodes ever. No, he was asking me what Gundam show I'd like to see, and I said maybe Gundam Wing. They're not doing Gundam Wing. Well, yeah, of course he wouldn't give it to Zach. I mean, I was shocked he gave it to Robert Rodriguez, to be honest, but apparently he was so impressed with what Rodriguez brought to it. And honestly, I could see Rodriguez doing live-action anime. Yeah, Emma Stone, too. You're totally right. Emma Stone was in Superbad. Huge. Yeah, Superbad, looking back, was one of those movies where it really was like, it was kind of a kickoff of a new era. So you'd use the EW design, Proto Zero design. It's basically AEW redesign of the classic. Yeah, basically that would be that's what I would go with. Yes, the second Wing Zero in the series, not the first one. But the one I'd most like to see adapted is that one. I think it was 0080, War in the Pocket. And I really like, I wish Charlie Brooker had worked on the Blade Runner 2049 script and some other. I wish he would actually work on some movie scripts. He's a great writer. But God, what other, War in the Pocket's the one I really want to see, though. That was because I think that would make a great movie. I think you could make, like, a great war film with that, about a child going through the war, and it wouldn't be about the action, it would be about the subtext. 8th MS Team would be a very good movie. That's considered by many fans to be, like, top-tier Gundam. I like Zeta, but I would love to see 8th MS Team. It's actually a pretty cool idea, the team together. And it's got a great romance story. That show has some awesome animation too. 8th MS Team has really great pacing. You could easily make that into a movie. I'd like to see a Gundam movie. I really would, but I think you have to go with the Amuro Ray Char, the Red Comet stuff. I think that would sell. The classic Gundam design, the classic, the classic show, the classic characters. I think you have to go, because it's space opera, and it would really connect with people, I think, more so than a lot of the other ones. That's the thing, you have Gundam OG, Char's Counterattack, you have all that stuff to pull from. And I just think the original series has the best setup for a movie. Not that I think it would be the best movie, but I could see that making a lot of money. I also think Escaflowne could do very well, even though it's just kind of a remake of Macross. I like Escaflowne a lot, too. And you gotta just keep the soundtrack. Don't change the soundtrack to Escaflowne. It's already amazing. I think it's Yoko Ono or something. That soundtrack's already like 11 out of 10. Gundam's a little dated now in the 70s. It was more groundbreaking when it came out because it was influenced by Star Wars and stuff, and it was cool at the time. It does seem a little dated now, but like I said, the premise of it you could really make into a movie. Where this kid's on a colony and he has to leave it with the Gundam and join a ship in the military, and he has to fight Char, who's like the best pilot and all that. That's really cool stuff. You could make a cool movie out of that. Yoko Kanno, yeah, great composer. Escaflowne, Battle Curse or something like that. Amazing music. I'm also a fan of Joe Hisaishi, I think is his name, who does all the Ghibli music. He's an amazing composer that I am shocked has never gotten an Academy Award nomination. It literally blows my mind. Every one of his scores is a masterpiece. I mean, he really should be up there with like Morricone or John Williams. But the Escaflowne soundtrack's like a masterpiece. There's this one song on there. What's it called? It's called like God, I can't remember what it's called. It's so good. It's so freaking good. There are so many different versions. I mean, Gundam, there's different versions of Gundam, I agree. But, the classic one has kind of this classic structure to it, though, that really works well for a movie. A lot of it's a little bit too much anime. Like, Gundam Wing is too much anime sometimes. It's really 90s anime. I like how more soundtracks are electronic. Nothing wrong with classical, but not applicable for all films. Yeah. I agree with you. I like the more I like the Thor Ragnarok soundtrack when it got electronic. Dude, never watched Escaflowne, and even I know it. It's that good. I know, the soundtrack's that good. Like, you have to know the Escaflowne soundtrack. Speaking of anime, what are your thoughts on the 2008 Speed Racer movie? I think Speed Racer is an underrated classic, and you might see that pop up in a video later on my series, Underrated Classics. I really like the Wachowskis' first 2 movies, Bound, and this little film called The Matrix. But Speed Racer is their 3rd best film, and their best film since the original Matrix. It's a little too long. Some of it looks a little cheap and fake, but it actually did Scott Pilgrim before Scott Pilgrim came out and got praised for it. Amazing little central story about family and the bond they make. Awesome race sequences. Totally captures the tone of the original. I'm actually a big Speed Racer fan. Joe Hisaishi, thank you. Yeah, he does Miyazaki, and he does all the Ghibli pretty much. He even did Ni no Kuni's score. Speed Racer was ahead of its time. I'm literally looking at a Speed Racer helmet right now, the DVD box set of every episode of Speed Racer in a Mach 5, and a Speed Racer shirt. Oh man, if you ever make a Cowboy Bebop movie, you wouldn't even have to change the intro. You could literally just use the intro from the show. You could start with Tank. Doom 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 doom. Ba-na 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 ba-na. You could just use the jazz score from Cowboy Bebop and open the movie like that, and it would be huge. God, I love the soundtrack to Cowboy Bebop. But yeah, I'm a Speed Racer fanboy. Speed Racer was a cartoon where people would stack their cars on top of each other, for Christ's sake. It was guys who would stack, like, it was so, and everyone crapped on that movie for being over the top and silly and stupid, and it was just like the show. It was a great adaptation. I think critics were way harsh on that movie. They all said it looked ugly, and they said it was terrible, and the acting was bad. Ezra Miller's real, I mean, not Ezra Miller, whatever that damn, Emil Hirsch, he's really good in that as Speed Racer. Racer X is really good. Jack from Lost. What the? Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox is really good. John Goodman's amazing. Susan Sarandon. The bad guy's great. There's so many great scenes in it. I do agree it's a little bit too much. There's too much CGI in some of the sequences. Some of the race car sequences have too much CG and stuff going on. They could have toned it down. Even as over the top as the original show was, they went even more so. There was way too much on screen. And the movie did not need to be 135 minutes. The film needed to be like 110 minutes, and then it would have had great pacing. I think it should have been a little under 2 hours, not like a 90-minute movie, but it was too long. But, yeah, I really like... I love the pace of it. I think the score is amazing. I think the scene where he jumps out of the car and the camera turns... I loved it when I saw it. I mean, when I saw it, I was 18 and a hardcore Speed Racer fan. But visually, I think it's so engaging and has a great energy. And I love the family stuff in the center of it. I really like the family. And I think people underrate it. I think it's a very good movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie, and it has flaws. Is it a kid's movie or something more? I know it does unfortunately play with those two things. It can't decide if it's a movie for young children or if it's a movie for everyone. I agree with that. That's an issue. But man, there's that one fight scene in that movie where they all fist fight, and Christina Ricci in that movie. She's so cute in that. It's kind of great. I love so much. I really, really liked that movie. I liked how quick it moved. I love the camera work. I thought the camera work was insane, and the editing and all that. So I'm a fan, you know. I'm a fan. I'll say it. I will defend Speed Racer. I might make a video on that movie someday. I like it. But I will say with that, I'm kind of a fanboy of Speed Racer. So it was made for someone like me. I love Speed. I mean, even the original anime has a lot of those problems. You know, oh man, Christina Ricci, she's a darling. As far as I'm concerned, she's never been bad in anything, and she's never been wrong. Like, you can cast her in anything, and I'm fine. Ricci's amazing. I have nothing negative to say about her. like she's just one of my, yeah, she's great. Across the board, no problems. Alright, let's look where we're at in the length here. We're about an hour and 40 minutes, so I think it's a good time to end it so we don't go a little too long, because I don't have much more to say. You guys didn't get any last questions before we go. Remember your last Jedi predictions in the comments, anyone who's listening to this afterwards, and, or to some of you right now, so I can remember, because I'm not going to remember off the chat what your prediction was, sorry. But yeah, mine's 210, obviously. But I kind of agree with Sean and a couple other people I've seen where they're thinking more around 190. Yeah, Pitch Perfect 3 is not going to bomb, but I don't think it'll do as well as the previous two. But that's it for Box Office Addict. If you listen to the show, you're a Box Office Addict yourself. You know it, I know it, and I'm not here to help you with your addictions. I'm here to make them worse. I'm sorry if I was a little sluggish this week. I'm sure that I'm not as funny or something like that. I've just had I've just had a rough weekend. I did finish the soundtrack, and I liked it a lot. Thank you for sending that to me. I would give it a 7.8 out of 10, if I had to give an arbitrary rating. Will you do something on Disney Fox? I will do a video on that. That's not even rumors. Disney is buying Fox stuff. That is going to happen. I believe Disney will own The Simpsons pretty soon. I think it'll hurt Pitch Perfect 3, but I still think the Pitch Perfect franchise has a big enough following. It's kind of like a big thing. But it could be like The Hangover 3, where the third film doesn't do nearly as good. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you for sending it to me. Yeah, I just had a rough weekend. Like I said, I was up till 5 o'clock in the morning. There's literally a scene on a Friday night where I was laying out on my stomach with my hands tied behind my back with a zip tie and duct tape on me for a movie I'm making right now. And I had to lay on the ground in like less than zero weather, and I was covered in some blood, fake blood, and we were just sitting there for hours. And I'd have to get the duct tape removed off my mouth so I could tell my DP how to set up the next shot. We would talk about the next shot while I laid on the floor. Wasn't fun. And then Saturday we had to go film the scene in a bathroom with another that went on for a while, but that was pretty fun. And today I thought I was going to get the last shot of the movie, but it turns out I made a mistake with continuity, so I have to wait till Tuesday. So it was a very, very rough time. It was very exploitation, I won't lie. We were kind of going for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, but it did get very gritty. I was shocked how gritty it got the other night. It was like, this is like a snuff film. You know, I was like, Jesus. Yeah, it went well. It's not lit poorly. We were going for something a little bit more documentary with it, though. That was kind of the whole thing with it, because Texas Chainsaw doesn't have good lighting. No, our movie has good lighting in a lot of it, but we were kind of going for something a little bit more gritty. We wanted a little bit of noise on the film. We wanted it to look a little, sometimes I like when a film's quality gets a little crappier in parts. I was going for something a little bit old school with it, I didn't want it to look so digital. I wanted it to look more grainy, like a movie, like an older film stock. I didn't want it to look like a new movie, because sometimes I think movies look a little too polished today, and they look too well lit. They look a little too perfect, and I think it kind of loses some of the human element of it. And I would like to do something a little bit more gritty. Because I always get caught up on lighting and all that, and I'm kind of sick of that. I'd like to go back to I'd like something more, because old movies didn't always have perfect lighting. Some of my favorite Hollywood movies, because they didn't have the equipment back then, and, and use of shadows. I've been trying to use shadows, expressionism. I will upload the trailer whenever I get done. If you want to see trailers for some of my other movies I made that I worked on, look, that's on this channel. There's the trailer for Last Call, which is a David Lynch spoof, and Second Act. There's a trailer on here for that too. That was a film about a guy who makes movies in his town. Where'd that come from? The movie I'm making now, though, is called Tough Guys. I can tell you that much. And it's about two guys who break into houses. And it's a lot like Christopher Nolan's film Following, but it's way more comedic. And I was kind of going for more like the two characters from Home Alone, Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci's character, if they didn't run into Kevin McAllister. Like, if you just followed them for the whole movie. Because I really like that early stuff with them when they go to the house and it's like the water bandits. Oh, Barry Lyndon's got, like, the best lighting ever like that in Days of Heaven. What position do you like on set? Director. It's the only position I'm good at. I'm not very good at cinematography. I mean, I know how to do it, but I'm not that good at it. I'm a good editor, but that's not on set. I'm pretty good at editing when I spend time on it. But, yeah, directing's the thing that I most enjoy. I'm good at... the thing that makes me decent at directing is I know cuts in my head. And a lot of the time when you're directing stuff, you have to know cuts. And you kind of have to know that this shot has to connect to this shot and this shot, so when the editor's putting the movie together, it doesn't look like a crappy, cheap movie. You have to know how to professionally cut a movie and film shots and get the scenes and get the sound and the audio the right way. A lot of low-budget films have bad audio, how to get the audio right. All that kind of stuff, the right angles. And Tough Guys was the name of a movie from the 80s with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas, where they get out of prison with Dana Carvey. But Yeah, I always love that part where Daniel Stern puts puts the thing in the sink, and he's like, "We'll be the water bandits." And I always thought that, but I was like, I always thought there's something almost voyeuristic about it. Like you have people break into people's houses and look at their stuff and find it and go through it. And I thought that'd be a cool idea for a movie. The reason my character's laying on the floor is that the characters do run into a Kevin McAllister situation. It's not Kevin McAllister, but basically they steal from the wrong person and things go downhill. But the first part of the movie is kind of like a buddy comedy with two guys who break into houses, and the majority of the movie is us just breaking into houses, and I filmed at all my friends' houses and places and like that, and that was a lot of fun. We had some great locations, because when you don't have a lot of money when you're making a movie, you really have to lean on what you have in your locations. Yeah, that's amazing. 101. Good old Kirk Douglas, man. Path to Glory, great movie by Kubrick. But yeah, I've been relying on the locations, like this barn I had, and people's garages, people's houses, people's apartments. I think we filmed in like at least 20 different places. I mean, we've been filming in a lot of different places. So it's been 10 weeks of shooting, but we're done. We're pretty much done. We only have the few shots to get, and we'll be done. That's a big reason I have that big thick beard you guys saw in the one video. It's because I started growing the beard when we were filming, and for continuity's sake, I had to keep the beard. So, and the idea was my beard was just going to grow as the movie got on, because we foolishly shot in continuity, which is crazy. I would never suggest that you do that on a low budget. Right now I'm shooting on a Nikon that's 2K. I'd like to have a 4K. And then I have a Canon that's less than that. My Canon, I have a Canon T5 that I shoot with. It's not a Rebel. I think it's just the T5, because the Rebels don't have the aperture settings. You can't do ISO and all that. But the main camera I use is much better than that. But I have a couple cameras actually. But the one was very expensive, and I got that's like a $1,500 camera, and the other one is like a $800 camera. But I'm saving up to get 4K eventually. I do want to start shooting in 4K down the road, but I don't have the savings for all that right now, because I got bills and everything like everyone else. No, there isn't a big film community where I stay. Not too worried about 4K. I'm not worried about it. I just like to be shooting in it, honestly. I just want to work with it. I'd like to, I just want higher quality digital, because I'm not a fan of digital. I really want to be shooting on film, because I'm not a big fan of, like, I'd prefer to be shooting right now on, like, 35mm film than anything, but I can't afford film, obviously, so I have to be shooting on digital. I'd rather master 1080p and get that equipment for cheap. Well, I'd like to be working with higher quality and seeing how I can manipulate the lighting and all that. And it's really good for night shooting. Digital's really, really good for night. And a lot of my this one takes place at nighttime. So it shows up better on lighting at night. Even though digital's very sensitive to light, it's great for night shooting. You get terrific lighting at nighttime with digital camera. But I'd prefer to be shooting with yeah, that's the thing. Film's just too expensive. I would love to be. I want to use an anamorphic lens. That costs a lot of money. I'm a big fan of wide lens focus, where the picture looks soft in the background, but it's really sharp up front. It's kind of how Ridley Scott shoots his movies, like Blade Runner and Alien. I'm a fan of that, and that's kind of how I want to shoot stuff. But it's just lenses are the biggest issue. Lenses are when things are really rough. That's when, because I only have 2 or 3 lenses, and you really want to have a lot of options. You want to be able to change the lenses from scene to scene and give more dramatic focus to a certain shot or a close-up, or you want to make a shot look better. And I'm very limited, and that's what really sucks. I'd rather be shooting with, I'd rather have, several boom mics going, a bunch of lighting with I know that's what you got to do when you make a low budget movie. You got to work, it's independent filmmaking. I had to pay for everything, so you have to do that. You work with your friends, it's that kind of stuff. But I am planning though. I'm planning in a few months to go out to Seattle. If something works out with a friend of mine here, he's just been having some bad health, but he's a storyboard artist. and I'm going out. I'm going out to see him in Seattle soon, and we're talking about. And he actually does storyboard for a lot of movies and shows like that. And we're talking about pitching a few ideas. So I might be going out to California next year too. So we are. He actually has a little bit of connection too, not much, but we're talking about pitching some ideas. Writing, drawing some stuff up and coming up. But we've been talking about that. I'm basically making this movie as kind of a demo reel. So when I go out there, I can show people that I can make a movie with no money. And then if you actually, because a lot of the time they want to know that you can make a movie when you get a directing job or something, or when you get hired on a crew. They want to know you know what you're doing. And I'm basically making Tough Guys right now so I can show the people when I go to meet some people that, like, hey, I can make a movie. I can make a movie that looks decent on a low budget. So if you give me the money, I could shoot it and make it. Because a lot of the time they just want to know that you can direct and you know what you're doing. You know how to use lenses, and you know what kind of camera you want to use. You know how to work with other people. You know how to direct actors and all that. So I'm just trying to work up to that, to where I kind of have a nice little. I could be like, hey, I made this movie. I made some of this stuff. Because I have a regular job, then I do the YouTube thing, but I mainly focus on film and movie stuff. That's what I really care about. The YouTube thing's kind of a hobby. My real passion's making narrative, long-term narrative. I like long-form stuff. My dream would be to work on television, more so than anything. I'll never go Hollywood on you, man. I couldn't do that. I'm not even close to, like, ever being successful yet, so we're gonna have to wait. Like, I'm just saying that's my hope, if I go down the road. Sorry, I can't. I gotta scroll the chat down. I was supposed to already end this episode. Come on, Pat. Would you guys make a SCP movie if one of the stories interested you, or never heard of the story? I've never heard of them. I don't know what SCP means. I'm sorry. It's hard to shoot big budget style when you're shooting, and it is. It's very tough. The hardest part about having a low budget is lighting and audio, because it's really expensive to light a movie well, and it takes hours to light a scene well. Most of the reason a set takes so long to get going in a movie is because they're lighting it, and audio is also very tough, because you can buy really good audio equipment in your audio, because professional movies just have amazing audio and people get used to that kind of audio. But I did steal something from Christopher Nolan. I like what he said about following. He said if you start your movie with really good audio and you kind of end your movie with good audio, people are more okay with putting it in the middle there. So I made sure to start my movie with good audio. And then some of the crappy audio they can accept, because as long as you start it, with my biggest advice to people who are making a low budget movie, work more on your sound and storytelling than the lighting, visual stuff, because most low budget filmmakers screw up. They work so hard on making a good looking movie, they forget to make a good movie. They really do. Think about how big of a hit Clerks was. Clerks is a terrible looking movie. Kevin Smith did he's not a good, he doesn't have an eye. It's not very well edited. It's not even that well acted, it's okay. But it's got a great script and it's funny and it caught on with people. Not everyone's Quentin Tarantino. You're not going to make Reservoir Dogs. Sometimes, and 20, when you're working within those budgets, like 20, in the few thousands, you got to focus on making a movie that has appeal outside of making a movie that looks good. Because people always said, well, if I get the lighting right and it looks like a good movie, then people will think I'm a good director. But that's not what that just makes you a cinematographer. That means you just know how to shoot and light stuff. And you have to tell a story and write characters and make memorable. See, so I'm working more on good dialogue and performances and, independent filmmakers, they end up making a film that's very bland a lot of the time because they work so hard on making it look good enough that it could be shown in movie theaters. They forgot to make a movie that was actually interesting and something to do. You don't, and they get a little too cliche. They rely too much on the cliches and they don't reinvent the cliches. Like when the Coen brothers made Blood Simple, they basically just made a Hollywood-esque movie on an indie budget. But what they also did was they kind of revamped neo-noir and showed that there is a new movement coming, and they just got such great acting and dialogue and tone and all that. I mean, that's a gorgeous movie. But that matters too. It's not just about making a good-looking movie. Yeah, dude, they're very versatile altogether. I've used most of the budgets on friendly cameras, Canon 5D and Nikon, and I highly recommend a Sony for just getting started. Yeah, yeah, that interview with Nolan, yeah, I actually watched that because my movie's very similar to his movie Following he made, and he made that movie in a similar way on a low budget. and he would film it by windows and all that stuff, and it's mainly guys talking while they break into houses, and you write a plot around it. And that's I mean, a lot of people don't like the Coen brothers, but you know, that's what I mean. I love the Coen brothers. Okay, then I'll go binge those videos, man. Thank you. I'll go check it out. Thank you for letting me know. But yeah, I think the mistake a lot of people I meet, because I know a lot of other people who make low budget stuff. They either want to do a horror movie, and they want to do a lot of gore special effects and stuff, or they want to do like an indie film where it's two people who hang out at a coffee shop and talk about like, you know, esoteric books and stuff. Like, you know, they sit around and talk about Paradise Lost or something. You know, they talk about Infinite Jest. They talk about David Foster Wallace, that kind of crap. They talk about Gravity's Rainbow. They go on about Pynchon. It's that kind of stuff. And they forget to write memorable characters and make a memorable world. Like, you know, Randall was a memorable character in Clerks. People remember that character. They like that character. Jay and Silent Bob were memorable characters. You know, you got to be a storyteller first. You'll never make it anywhere if you can't prove that you can make a story. Because if you can just direct a movie, you're basically just a glorified music video director, or you're a guy who could direct a pilot for a network show maybe, but you're never going to be like a storyteller filmmaker if that's what you want to be. You have to tell stories first. Because it's two sides. There's the technical knowledge, which you should know, but then unfortunately there's also the real part that makes talent and creativity is how you choose to tell the story and how you use the camera and all that, you know. It's tough to be original. It's tough to do something that hasn't been done 1,000 times. So, you know, that's the struggle. Coen versus PTA, your opinion. Oh, Coen's on a whole... Yeah, not even close. Coen brothers. I mean, I can't even... I love Boogie Nights and Magnolia. I love Boogie Nights, and I love There'll Be Blood. But, like, I mean, the Coen brothers do that over... I mean, Barton Fink is basically a Charlie Kaufman script before Charlie Kaufman wrote that. Yeah, but God, most of Terrence Malick's films are bad. He's made 3 good movies his whole career, arguably 4. And I'd say Badlands and Days of Heaven are great. But everything else is pretty crappy. I mean, yeah, he does. Kubrick did too. You can tell stories visually, but you kind of have to be a master visualist. I mean, Terrence Malick's one of the greatest visualists of all time. If you can direct it a painterly fashion, if you're David Lynch or something and you want to make the straight story, be my guest. But, you know, that's very rare. Typically, you're not going to be that talented. There's only those few. It's rare to be great in something, no matter what you're doing. A comedian, a writer. PTA has no misfires. I'll name 3 misfires in a row. The Master's a misfire, big time. Second half totally falls apart on that movie. Inherent Vice is a total misfire and a terrible movie. And Punch Drunk Love's not a miss, but it's not great either. The Coen Brothers, I mean, yeah, if you just look at, God, Fargo, just by itself, is probably better than 2 or 3 PTA movies. But I definitely like PTA. I mean, I love PTA. But it's like asking me if I like Tarantino more than the Coen Brothers. Like, no. I always take the Coen Brothers. They also make more movies. I mean, you're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson, who makes 1 movie every 6 or 7 years, while the Coens make films on a regular basis. You know, Martin Scorsese's had a bunch of hits, too. I mean, a bunch of misses, too. I mean, he made that bad musical back in the 70s, New York, New York and stuff. And I'm not a big fan of Kundun. But, you know, yeah, Fargo's an amazing movie. Yeah, just Barton Fink and Fargo, Big Lebowski, The Man Who Wasn't There, Blood Simple, Raising Arizona. I mean, they're all amazing movies. I mean, the problem is I don't see the influence in PTA. Boogie Nights to me was Altman, Scorsese. You see the Hal Ashby influence, and I'm not knocking that. I love that about him, but I don't know. I felt like the Coens were a little bit more original when they started. Yeah, see, I actually love that movie. Hell Caesar. I thought Hell Caesar was a terrific movie. Actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Coen brothers have made some bad stuff. I hate that movie they made, that one with Brad Pitt and, Frances McDormand. Brad Pitt's really funny in it. God, what's the name of that movie with George Clooney? It's got that great joke where George Clooney invents the dildo thing. Oh, Boogie Nights is amazing. Boogie Nights is an amazing movie. Are a lot of independent directors nowadays overpraised and at times have... Man, every director's always been... Throughout history of film, there's been directors with ego. That's nothing new. Ego's part of being a filmmaker. I mean, I don't know what you guys are trying to... Yeah, Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading I didn't like at all. I mean, once again, yeah, I like the Coen brothers more than Wes Anderson. I'm a big Coen brothers fan. That movie they made a few years ago, A Simple Man, I think was a masterpiece. That movie they made, I thought that was one of the greatest films with religious subtext I've ever seen. I thought their remake of True Grit was great until maybe like the last 50, but it's an amazing movie. I thought, yeah, No Country for Old Men. And once again, Until the Third Act's like an amazing movie. Llewellyn Davis was a great movie. Yeah, I mean, just one after another. They have so many good movies. I mean, they have at least like a dozen movies I love. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a great comedy, great cinematography. It's like the Odyssey. That song's really catchy bluegrass. I've seen that song performed live. I mean, you know, it's just what it is, man. People like different stuff. I mean, I like David Fincher more than I like Paul Thomas Anderson, and he hasn't written anything. Yeah, Hudsucker Proxy, which is basically feels more like a Sam Raimi movie. It's funny, he made Hudsucker Proxy, and it feels like a Raimi film, and then Raimi made A Simple Plan, which feels like a Coen Brothers film. I always thought that was really interesting together because they kind of work together. But yeah, I'm a Sam Raimi Coen Brothers fanboy. I mean, to me, those guys brought in the new wave of film in the 90s. I don't think we would have a lot of the stuff that's great if it wasn't for the Coens. I don't think the 90s boom that came in a lot. I think the Coens directly contributed to it. I think they were really, I mean, Blood Simple changed everything. I mean, that was really when the indie scene was really going to change, and I don't think they've ever not been great. I mean, does anyone? I mean, God, I mean, has anyone had better lit movies of the variety they've had in recent? I mean, oh my God, the work that Barry Sonnenfeld did for them, and then Deakins and stuff has just been jaw dropping. And the fact that they write and direct everything, I'm a big fan of too, and they've been around. They're prolific, and they've never lost their voice as filmmakers. They've always kept that unique voice of theirs, and they just, I don't know, some of their stuff reminds me of literature. Yeah, no, I definitely Pulp Fiction. I definitely have Pulp Fiction. I mean, obviously, it was one of my favorite movies. I mean, Pulp Fiction definitely I would keep up there. But yeah, I once again though, if I'm going back, I still think Fargo's probably the best movie of that time. It's pretty much, it's right there with Pulp Fiction. I'd say like Pulp Fiction, Boogie Nights, and Fargo all on par with each other. Sonnenfeld, I don't know, he became a director and didn't do. I mean, he did the Men in Black movies, but he was a terrific one of the greatest cinematographers of all time was Sonnenfeld. It's kind of like a Jan de Bont, who did Speed and all that. Started out doing the cinematography for like The Hunt for Red October. I love Magnolia, big fan. The Hunt for Red October and got Die Hard, like an amazing DP, and then he went on to become like just a crappy action director. He did Twister, amazing cinematographer though. Very, very, yeah, that movie they made a few years ago, Simple Man, though, I thought was just like a masterpiece. That movie blew me away. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple Coen Brothers movies. I think I got them all, the ones I like a lot. I feel like I might be missing a couple. That seems about right. Yeah, Magnolia is really good. I got no problem with Magnolia. Big fan. Great, you guys made me take what was going to be an hour and 40-minute episode and make it over 2 hours. Thanks. Ask me freaking questions that I asked for. Magnolia might show up on my favorite films list, or it might not. I'm not sure. I'm still mixed on that. I mean, it's one of my favorite. Like, I love Magnolia. I'm like a big fan of that movie, like big time. I think the first 15 minutes is like amazing. I don't know. I just haven't been a fan of PTA since There Will Be Blood. I thought The Master was a mess. I thought Inherent Vice was awful. And I know it's just like Tom and Pynchon. It's like, okay, well, what's interesting about reading and Pynchon and his prose doesn't always transfer visually to a movie. For me, 2.5 hours. I watched Inherent Vice twice, and it just drove me crazy. That movie's so bad. God, it's bad. Joaquin Phoenix just mumbles through that whole damn movie. At least The Master had great acting. Like, The Master has that great interrogation scene. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's amazing in it, and the cinematography's great. And there's the Joaquin Phoenix in particular is amazing in The Master. Like, he's amazing. I actually thought he probably deserved the Oscar that year. But yeah, Inherent Vice. Oh my god. Hey, good choices, man. Good choices. We always say the episode's going to be short, and look what... I know, I thought this was going to be another short one, like an hour and 40. You're right about PTA, but PTA has the skill that carries the flaws of the master and Inherent. I mean, I think he definitely, I mean, they're worth watching. They're not, like... None of his films are, like, terrible. I don't think he could make a totally bad movie, but... I mean, I was just bored during Inherent Vice. It put me... I mean, I'm not a big Pynchon fan anyway. And if you're going to do Pynchon, do Crying of the Lot 49 or something, or Gravity's Rainbow. Inherent Vice isn't even one of Pynchon's better books. It's one of his lesser books. I mean, if he was going to do something like that, he made it so distant. Why didn't you just do Gravity's Rainbow? Like, that's what I don't get. Why did he do that? I mean, of all Pynchon books, that was one of the... And that trailer was so awesome. Inherent Vice, it looked like a Coen Brothers. It looked like The Big Lebowski meets The Long Goodbye. And I'm a big fan of The Long Goodbye. Good Pie. Which is Robert Altman's film from the 70s, which is based off Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe character with Elliot Gould. One of my absolute favorite films, The Long Goodbye. And yeah, Inherent Vice was just like, God, it's so dry. So dry. He's unfortunately doing this thing in the last few years where he's trying to recreate himself, and I get what he's doing. I admire PTA. But There Will Be Blood felt like the last time he really wanted to make an excess. I'm actually hearing Phantom Thread goes back more to that. I miss the 90s PTA. I gotta be that way. I much prefer Boogie Nights and Magnolia to the new stuff, because the new stuff is so him trying to be Kubrick and all that crap, where he's trying to be like such a unique voice, and I admire that, I really do, and he's trying to be more artistic and all that, but I just miss I miss the energy he used to bring to his movies. Boogie Nights has such great pacing and cutting and story beats and dialogue, and Magnolia has the same thing. And all the stuff about that, he used to have so much energy, and now his movies are more slow and ponderous, and I don't know why he does that. I get what he's trying, like, it's like he thought There'll Be Blood was so successful he had to keep doing that, and he kind of missed that There'll Be Blood works despite it not being a typical PTA movie. Like, it works because of him just having that character of Daniel Plainview in that story, and Daniel Day-Lewis in that role, and that setting. It all just works. I mean, it could have been a 6-hour movie. It all came together. But yeah, those other movies, I don't... the thing that every PTA film is about this. It's about the internal world that the people want to live in, clashing with the exterior world that's around them. This is the thread of all of this film. This goes back to Sydney Hard 8. It's characters that live in this bubble where they're almost always a family and a bond or something going on, this bond between people that's clashing with the outside world. Boogie Nights is about this porn family that's having a hard time adapting to the new era of tape and the 80s coming in and things changing around them. They're not realizing that they live in this little bubble. They don't understand the outside world. Same thing for Magnolia. Same thing with There'll Be Blood. It's always about exterior clashing with the interior. He always has a lot of scenes of people in rooms and the houses and all that talking. The quiz show is a perfect example of this in Magnolia. And even in Phantom Thread, it's about a guy who's an artist who makes clothes, struggling with the world around him. PTA's always been about that. It's what he's so brilliant at is he's a great world builder. He designs these worlds very quickly. In just a few minutes, he has the costume, the characters, the lighting all down in a very unique way to where you kind of get the world immediately. And then he plays with that. He plays with what the character's trying, like Adam Sandler, what he wants to do in that world and the frequent flyer miles and all that. And then the reality of around it. His characters basically live in a fantastical movie set, and yet the world that he puts around it for the most part is pretty realistic outside of some of the stuff in Magnolia. And I've always really liked that about PTA. I thought that was a great dynamic. And he's a genius at that. He's a genius at characters struggling with each other to find some middle ground with each other. I like hearing that Phantom Thread's kind of like an old screwball comedy. I hear that a lot of the dialogue's kind of a bringing up baby, Howard Hawks-esque kind of thing. It's very snappy dialogue between Daniel Day-Lewis and the lead actor, so I'm very excited to see it. I hope it's really good. I'm always on the corner of PTA. I always got his back. I just haven't enjoyed his last 2 movies that much. For me, but his old stuff I think is amazing. first on only for me. Oh, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I think Guardians of the Galaxy would have been better if it was rated R, or if he'd have committed to it being a full-on kids movie. I think it's a little bit. It has an imbalance to it. There's that like Pollock joke that's about jizzing, but then there's jokes that are just so silly they're for like 5-year-olds. I don't think it all meshes well. I get that James Gunn's going for like Ice Pirates or Buckaroo Banzai-esque tone, but I like the first half of Guardians a lot. When they're in prison, I think the framing and all that stuff's really great, but it's once they get out of prison and the characters just start saying their character development that really bothers me. When they're just like, hey, we're family now. Why? You didn't really explain that. Hey, we're together now. Hey, we all love. It's like, why? You got to earn that. I didn't think a lot of it was earned. It's just an entertaining romp. Have you heard about the Thing Like movie from District 9 guy? I don't know what you mean. Those like short films he's been making with Sigourney Weaver. I've seen those. I really like Neil Blomkamp, even though he's terrible with actors after District 9. I still think Neil Blomkamp has good movies ahead of him. He just needs to bring in another screenwriter and maybe somebody else to work with the actors. But he's visually, man, I love Neil Blomkamp. Why did PTA name the lead character in Phantom Thread Reynolds Woodcock? I don't know. Because he likes unique names, I guess. Woodcock. Maybe that was a real name. It was a real name he based it off of. Oh, I agree. The shorts that Neil Blomkamp makes are really good. They're really, really good. I love his short films. Like, all of them. And, but yeah, I'm not sure, if you're talking about the short films, I have seen those. I have seen some of his stuff. I hope Neil Blomkamp has a comeback. I really do. District 9 gave me a lot of hope as a director, and he's just disappointed me ever since. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, that's most Marvel movies. They're just fun. They're not much more than that. You know, that's how it goes. All right, way longer than I want to do. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this episode up because I don't want to be up all night doing this. All right, guys. I love you guys. You guys are great. This was a fun box office. That actually wrapped up. I haven't talked about Paul Thomas Anderson much on this channel. I haven't talked about any of his movies or anything like that. I'll probably do a review of Phantom Thread, and in that review, I'll be able to talk about him a little bit more. And down the road, I'd like to talk about Boogie Nights and something like that. I just haven't had you know, it's just what videos, you know, I wanted to talk about Tales from the Tour Bus because I was really passionate about that right now, and Mike Judge. I want to talk about, you know, just certain things that are appealing to me right now. PTA is just someone I'm not right into right now, but when Phantom Thread comes out, I'll come back and talk about some of his stuff and go into it a little bit more, and the stuff that he's been playing with thematically. One thing I do respect about him, I always will, is that he tries to do new things, and he is trying to make films that aren't like everything else right now. And in a world where, you know, in a world where like a lot of filmmakers are settling for their past, you know, because PTA could just make Boogie Nights 2.0 and it would be a hit. He's not trying to do the same thing over and over again. He is trying to expand his filmography into something unique, and that is something. Because, you know, like, there'd be nothing wrong if he just made really entertaining. But it's so easy for him to make a movie. He's trying to challenge himself and make stuff that's really tough to pull off. And that's something I'll always admire about him. And I love hearing him talk about film. He's a scholar of it. He's amazing to hear talk about it. And he's just a cool guy. I like his wife, too. I like Maya Rudolph. Big fan of her, too. Yeah, I'll love you. I'll have to see more Coen's films. Yeah, you do need to see some more Coen Brothers film, man. I'd highly, go back to their early work in particular. Barton Fink is good as what's the name of that? Darn, it's that amazing Charlie Kaufman film that Spike Jonze directed. It's amazing. Adaptation. If you're a fan of Adaptation and that kind of stuff, you should go back and watch Being John Malkovich. Very similar. Very influential film to a lot of directors in the 90s and 2000s. And Blood Simple's aged like wine. It just gets better every year. That's the relationship with Lewis for films. Yes. And I don't know. I think in general, what we're going to be, Adaptation. Adaptation, yeah. If you're a fan of that, Barton Fink will be right up here. If you like David Lynch, there's kind of a third act that goes very David. Yes, Barton Fink's very Adaptation. Yeah, Barton Fink's very much like Charlie. Charlie Kaufman's even said that Barton Fink's one of his biggest influences as a writer. Yeah, I love adaptation. Yeah, but Barton Fink is actually, it's got the most surreal ending of any Coen Brothers film by far. The last like 15 minutes of Barton Fink is completely surreal. You know, it's insanely surreal at the end, and but it's all about the writing process and the writer and because the Coens had writer's block, so they wrote a screenplay about writer's block, and then it becomes this whole meta thing about the writing process and about being Jewish, like they, you know, it's a lot of things. But if you like Kaufman, you'll like Barton Fink. That's definitely one of their better. A lot of people think it's their best movie, but it's, you know, for me, it's like, oh, Miller's Crossing. I forgot about that. Miller's Crossing, amazing gangster movie they made in the early '90s with Gabriel Byrne. Has some of the best cinematography ever. Oh my god, it's amazing. Miller's Crossing, so good. I love Miller's Crossing. It's got one of my favorite. It's got one of the funniest scenes ever, an interrogation scene. Who's the best girl in Evangelion? I don't know. I mean, that's I mean, I guess you can choke the one bitch, so I guess her, because she likes being choked. Because Shinji gets... Isn't it Asa? Is it Asa? Is that her name? I haven't seen it in a long time. Is it the redhead chick? And then the other one's called, like, Ryu... Sorry, it's been a long time since I've seen that show. It's been, like, I'd say 8 years, maybe? I'm not gonna... Don't quote me on that, but it's been a while. But, yeah, she was... I always liked her more. I liked her attitude. I like chicks with attitude. And she was always really cool and kind of a badass, so definitely her. But yeah, I liked all the characters in that show. I thought they were all very well balanced. It's funny how they all represent something subtextually. They all represent things, and they're not totally fleshed out characters. They're very like cliche character types, but the way he writes and frames that show, it doesn't make them feel that way. They feel like they're much larger characters than that. And in that show, so it was very, you know, because it starts off just like a typical mech show, and then what was it? It's like episode 16 or something, and then just goes crazy. Oh, Asuka, yeah, she's, or is it Asuka? It might be Asuka. Yeah, Asuka. Yeah, I always thought she was like the hot one. I have watched that movie. I've watched all the Evangelion movies. I actually own that. I own one of them on Blu-ray. But, yeah, I've seen the Rebuild movie. I wasn't a big fan of the Rebuild one, actually. I thought it was a little messy. A little incoherent in its structure. But, yeah, I've seen that. There was a point where, like, if there was an anime, I saw it, because all my friends were all, you know, they were all otakus, and they wanted me to watch all this anime, and I kind of got burned out on anime. I read manga still, like, you know, I still like stuff like Berserk, but I'm not watching, I don't watch that much anime anymore. That's how it is, though. Alright, guys. So I only have one thing left to say. Congratulations! Yay, congratulations!